Well, the Carolina Panthers failed to reach our expectations going into the season, Cole. I guess that means that the 2024-2025 season was a complete and utter failure again for the Carolina Panthers, right? Just trash football. No, they actually looked pretty good at times this season. They looked pretty bad at a lot of other times as well. So we're going to, here in this very first segment of the show, evaluate the Carolina Panthers 2024 season, and we'll do it in the fashion of the good, the bad, and the ugly. Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Cole Bryson. My name is Diesel. You're Toloing already. I hope. If you're not, jump on the stream on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. Just search for The Fan Upstate. You get to chop it up with other Tolos who are watching as well. We love the fact that we've got Tolos already replying, already in the comment section. I know Madcraft is there. Dan B always jumps into the show. Speaking of Dan B, got to commend his efforts for putting together and keeping track of the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge. We're going to be giving you the final results, the official final results, coming up at 5 o'clock right here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson.
Hope we forget about that.
But after going 2-15 last year, Cole, the sky seemed like it was falling. Nothing was going right for the Carolina Panthers as an organization. They turned it around just a little bit. We thought, wouldn't it be great if they could triple their win total this year and get to 6 wins in 2024? Well, they fell short of that by 1 win. 5-12 in the 2024 season. And the fact that they rode out on a big-time win on the road against a decent, not great, but decent Atlanta Falcons team, Cole, if you're a Panthers fan, which I know you're not, you're a Cowboys fan, y'all got your own problems in insecurities. You got to feel pretty good about the way this season wrapped up.
No, you do. You want to see positive momentum. You want to see things during the season, Diesel, that you can go back as a staff, as a franchise. You want to have moments during the season that you can go back and pull and say, hey, this is what we need more of. This is what we need to do. And I'll tell you this, another thing people don't realize when it comes to the fans, you know, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants the simplicity of a win or a loss, Diesel. And again, that's what coaches get paid to do, is win games. However, what's not talked about near enough is the development of players on the roster throughout the season. Yes, to your point, it was not a good season for the Panthers. However, the staff, from what I've heard, feels like there's a lot of developmental takeaways that they can pull from the 2024 season, and they're undefeated, by the way, in 2025. I don't know if you know that or not. The Panthers are undefeated in 2025. It all comes down to wins and losses because that's what you get paid. That's what Dave Canales is there to do, is win. However, to your point, there's a lot of good that you can pull from.
I think Dave Canales, if you really want to think about it, he was brought in to change the culture. He was brought in to change everything about this franchise. Yeah, Dan Morgan is doing his job. Dan Morgan is doing his thing, but you still are working under an iffy owner in Dave Tepper. Now, good thing is Dave Tepper took a step back this year. Dave Tepper was barely involved this year, which was absolutely fantastic to see a guy like that who can't keep himself out of trouble realize that he is a distraction to his team. Cash the checks, Dave. Write the checks. Bring in the concerts if you want to, but leave the football to the football people, those who know what it is that they're doing, Cole. Look, again, good, bad, ugly on the Carolina Panthers season in 2024. Tolos, would love to get your thoughts. If you text in, you can text in at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Reminder, that is something new that we started last week. You are now texting and calling on the same number, 844-FAN-PHONE. You do not need to put the word fan on your messages. Wesley Roberts says, what was worse this season, Cole's upset picks or the Dallas Cowboys? That's cruel.
No
Wesley.
comment.
We hadn't even got there yet. Could you give us a minute? Could you let
Happy New Year to you too, Wesley. Oh, God. Freaking A.
So the good, Cole, the good. This one's an easier category to talk about because there has been quite a lot of good this season. No, not necessarily in the win-loss column, even though you did improve to 5 wins over 2 wins last year. You started to see, Cole, and this is something Anish Shroff said in one of the live broadcasts a few weeks ago as I was listening to it on the radio. He said, the transition from winning to losing usually goes like this. You go from losing big to losing small, to winning small to winning big. And we could see that play out in this Carolina Panthers season, especially, if you take out the Andy Dalton stretch of games that he played, you saw them losing big at the beginning of the season. There were a lot of blowouts early in the season, and then you saw them transition into losing small and winning small over these past 5 weeks of the season. So that's definitely something that is worth noting, the way this Carolina Panthers team has had that turnaround. After that Week 11 bye, Cole, and I know this doesn't look sexy, but they went 2-5.
They did.
But it was against a very, very difficult stretch of teams. Tampa Bay, on the road at Philly, at home at Tampa Bay, at Atlanta. They had 4 really tough games down that stretch of their last 7 games, and 3 of those losses, 3 out of those 5 games that they lost were by a touchdown or less. 4 of those losses were against playoff teams.
You know what's interesting? The Andy Dalton wreck is not talked about enough. I mean, for whatever reason, like the mantra before that happened was Bryce Young's broken. Bryce Young can't be fixed. What's wrong with Bryce Young? What do you do if you're Dan Morgan? I mean, heck, you and I had the conversation on this show. Are you redrafting a quarterback in 2025 in April? And all of a sudden, Andy Dalton has the wreck. Bryce Young comes back in after being benched and looks like a different quarterback. What he looked like yesterday. I mean, are you kidding me? Can you get that?
And
replicate that 8 to 10 times, Diesel, and you're in the playoffs next year.
He plays like that for a majority of the season, Cole. I have no doubt saying that's a playoff team.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying that's a playoff caliber team because they looked fantastic. When was the last time Carolina even scored 44 points in a game? Like that doesn't happen.
14 BC,
38, yeah, 38 points in regulation, 44 with the overtime. But you don't see that out of this team. Remember last year and the first couple of games of this year, you felt good about yourself if the Panthers scored 13 points, a touchdown and 2 field goals. That's about all this offense was good for the majority of the 2023 and 2024 seasons in the first half, at least. I saw this team grow a lot down the stretch. After that bye, after they came home from that Germany trip, this team looked like a different football team. Another one I want to point out, J.C. Horn finally lived up to his potential. I know he didn't play in the last 2 games of the season, but outside of that, he played the majority of the season, and he looked really good. And he's going to the Pro Bowl.
Yeah,
J.C. Horn's a Pro Bowl-bound
player.
I know. Xavier Legette looked really good. The wide receiver room looked really good, even though, Xavier Legette was brand new, playing as a rookie. Adam Thielen getting old AF. I mean, I think he's actually shares a birthday with Jerry Jones.
Oh,
believe it or not.
Bad.
He's old.
That's bad.
And bringing in Jalen Coker out of Holy Cross. I mean, holy bleep, who could have saw this guy coming as a quality receiver in the NFL? The wide receiver room now has a good, solid base to work off of. It's going to be exciting to see what happens with them in the draft. Will they go wide receiver again? Will they keep trying to get Bryce Young more weapons? And then again, of course, like I mentioned before, Dave Tepper kept his hands off this year. And those are the good things that I can point out that went well for this team this year.
When you talk about the good, Diesel, obviously there are mixed feelings on where they should go in the draft. And we're going to get into that because we have 4 months to talk about it. But they've got to start drawing from the good moments and being able to create consistency. Because if you look at the schedule this season, if you look at what the Panthers did, there was just so many blips of inconsistency. You talk about the Atlanta game yesterday where they, to your point, scored 44 points. Last week, they couldn't score 14 points. So they've got to start being consistent. So I know that sounds like a negative, but it's a good problem to have, Diesel, because it means that there is substance there. There are games that you can watch on tape and say, oh, the Panthers did a lot of really good things. So in order to get consistent, you have to have good things. They didn't have a lot of good things in 2023. Yeah. So I think that's, even though it sounds like a negative, I think that is a positive.
There's a vast majority of the season, Cole, where it felt like this team had to score minimum 24 points to win a game. Yeah. And this offense was not capable of scoring 24 points to win football games. I mean, you go back to the very beginning of the season, they gave up 47 to New Orleans, 26 to LA, 22 to Vegas, and that wasn't a win, by the way. They gave up 34 to the Bengals, who were awful in the first half of the season, 36 to the Bears, 38 to the Falcons, 40 to the Commanders. Yeah. These sound like college scores. But Cole, if they weren't scoring minimum 3 touchdowns and a field goal, they weren't going to win football games. Well, now it feels like, especially what we've seen over the past couple of weeks, if the Carolina Panthers can get a defense to the point next year where they're holding teams to 14 points, 17 points, you got a really good chance to win games.
Zach Walford on the YouTube stream says Bryce may have the biggest turnaround the last 6 weeks of the season, from being the biggest bust possibly in the NFL to a guy who looks like he found his swagger and his confidence back and looks like QB1. And Zach, you're right. I mean, you talk about a tale of 2 seasons, man. I don't know what it was that clicked for him. I don't know if it was just one thing. It may have been 10 different things, but you're exactly right. I mean, it was bad. And then the turnaround that he had, I mean, you almost feel like if you're the Panthers, Diesel, you hate that the season just ended, because you're starting to kind of feel like you're getting signs of momentum. You're playing good football. You're scoring points. So even though they didn't have a good season, Mark Schlereth, I remember what he told you and I a couple of weeks ago when we had him on, you've got to build a winning culture. And in order to do that, two wins in 2023 to 5, it may not seem like a big jump, but if that's 8 next year, guess what? If you're an 8-win team, you're in the hunt for the playoffs.
Yeah. Corn Chip texts in at 844-FAN-PHONE and says, as a Falcons fan, screw the Panthers. Let's see here. Leprechaun of Lyman says, you have a really happy leprechaun toloing. I'll call y'all later on the clock right now.
Good news, Leprechaun?
Maybe it's because Notre Dame is still in the playoffs. Maybe he's also a Carolina Panthers
Maybe
fan.
He found the pot of gold.
I don't know. Maybe he just found some pot. I don't know. The bad on this season, though, Cole. There's a lot of bad to talk about in this season, and actually, there's all the losses. I'm going to get to that in the ugly category, but the bad is that Bryce Young, like you said, might not have even been on the field again this year if it hadn't been for Andy Dalton's injury. We could have missed all of this. So you never want to wish for somebody to get hurt, but Andy Dalton, there were even quotes from Dave Canales saying that Andy is going to be our quarterback going forward. And they could have missed out on all of this, and we could still be in a bad situation.
I'm telling you, think about it though. Just think, what if, and I know like you can play the what if game for every team and for every situation, but Diesel, what if that wreck didn't happen? How long would Andy Dalton still be playing?
Yeah.
You don't even want to think about that because it sounds terrible to think about, but it's true.
Yeah.
It might have been the best thing that happened.
And my second bad is the injury situation just really started to mount up for this team. They didn't have depth, and that's not something that's new, right? That's not breaking news or anything. They didn't have depth. Now, you could put this one in the good category is when they were forced to go to depth at times. That depth, very thin depth that they had, was able to step up and show us something. So they got to think better play out of some of the bench guys and some of the midseason acquisitions that they thought they were going to have to get. But they got to get their injury situation figured out. I don't know if it's strength and conditioning. I don't know if it's the medical staff over there, or if it's just the fact that you had starters out there playing a lot because they didn't have quality depth behind them.
I don't think they had quality depth behind them. You go look early in the season at the guys that were on the field that were actually taking quality snaps. Depth was a huge issue. And I don't even know that, like, if everybody were to have stayed healthy this season, I don't even know that the depth would have been solved, Diesel. This is now, when you talk about depth, this is now where you turn to the offseason and talk about free agent signings and talk about the draft coming up in April, because, everyone looks at the draft as, hey, we've got to go get guys that are immediate impact guys. And certainly that might be the case. But when you talk about depth for the Panthers, Diesel, here is where you go get depth. To your point, I understand the play of the quarterback's important. The play of the quarterback's going to be talked about. But I think the depth or the lack thereof was the biggest issue for Carolina this season.
Zach Wofford on the stream says, if you're the Panthers and you're at number 9 in the draft, who are you taking to improve this team right now? Well, Zach, I believe the Panthers are sitting at 8 in the draft. Not a huge difference there, but it is worth noting. You look at mocks, and they're mocked pretty heavily to the edge rusher out of Penn State, Abdul Carter. Also, Michael Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. Depending on which one you look at, those
Abdul
two are going
Carter,
back and forth.
That's right now. Yeah. Like, he is a Micah Parsons, and it's weird because he looks like him. He played at the same school. He looks like Micah Parsons made over. If he were there, There's no way I couldn't.
You gotta, yeah.
And then they've got to. To your point about defense, they've got to get better defensively, man. They lost Brian Burns, during the offseason, and you didn't replace Brian Burns. So now you've got to go replace that. And he was a big part of your defense and pass rush and stuff in that middle. So they've got to be a lot better defensively. And I think that I know everybody wants to talk about Bryce Young and offense, but I think when it comes to the draft, I think you got to go defense early.
As good as Jadeveon Clowney was 10 years ago, he wasn't able to replace the production that they were getting out of Brian Burns. So if you go there, if you go edge rush, Abdul Carter is fantastic. Mykel Williams also very, very good out of Georgia. And then there's the receiver McMillan out of Arizona. If they wanted to go the route to get more offensive weapons, if they just wanted to double down on this offensive side of the football, that's a quality place to go. I'm not sure that that's necessarily where they need to go. I think you need to address both sides of the football, and being there inside the top 10, the positions that are going to go early, the quarterback and the elite wide receivers, you don't necessarily need. So it puts you in a position sitting there at number 8 in the draft.
Man. It's a good spot.
Yeah. You didn't really lose much by falling after winning the game yesterday. You didn't lose much as far as who you're going to be able to take. If Carter goes first and Williams is there, great. You got an elite defensive end. If you're edge rusher, if Mykel, somebody gets hot on him and he goes, and you got Carter who falls to you, great. You got an elite edge out of Penn State. So I think you're going to be good no matter where you go there.
And I think this is why, Diesel, in my mind, Dan Morgan was brought in, because you're sitting in this 8th spot. You got J.C. Horn in the 8th spot in 2021. And I know, look, Dan Morgan, he does have an impact on the field. I'm not saying he doesn't. But when you talk about what the Panthers have to do in the offseason, 9 total selections in the 2025 NFL Draft. This is why Dan Morgan was hired. When you look at guys across the league who have had good drafts consistently, the Patriots or the Kansas City Chiefs of the world, Diesel, when you can figure out how to draft well consistently, and no, you're not going to hit on everyone. You're not going to hit on every pick, but this is where Dan Morgan has to shine. You go into this draft with 9 total selections, Diesel. 8 of those 9 are in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah.
So you've got an opportunity to get guys, and who knows what they'll do in free agency. I think that, to your point about a wide receiver, I know there's guys out there. I think the Panthers would be wise to maybe go after a receiver in free agency. And, address your big needs first, and maybe see if you can get a veteran guy in free agency.
If you can afford it. I mean, as of right now, the Panthers have just $31 million in cap space available to them next year. Compare that to the Patriots that have $131 million available to them in the cap. So
if somehow, some way with that cap, you could go out and get a T. Higgins from Cincinnati.
Sure.
I mean, you're talking
maybe
about
some
all
moves
of a sudden
could happen that would open up some more money.
You're talking about a guy in T. Higgins who's 2 to 3 wins by himself. And he's that good. So if you can somehow, some way go get a T. Higgins, and then in the draft you address defense, who knows, man? This could be a playoff team.
And we didn't even really mention it. Xavier Legette has come on and made some good catches over the past couple of weeks. Sure, he's had his drops. He's had his fair share of problems. But there was a throw yesterday that Bryce overthrew him just a little bit. Now, he didn't really go up for the ball. That's a problem, but he was also falling backwards. So you really can't get a lot of elevation on that particular play. But the fact that he was able to come down with a very, very difficult catch just shows what kind of skill he has, Xavier Legette has, and what he's going to be for this Panthers team going forward. I think the team's going to have to be built on young players. And yes, if Dan Morgan can do what Dan Morgan did last year and make some good moves in the offseason that brings some more money in, and then you can use that to go get one elite wide receiver for a year or two, then I think this team's really cooking.
On the YouTube stream, Zach says would T. Higgins want to come play and also be available, because he would be a wide receiver 1 already if he was with the Panthers. Yeah, Zach, he'll be a wide receiver 1 just about anywhere he goes. But yeah, if he came somehow, some way, if the Panthers could snag him, there's no doubt he'd be wide receiver 1, and Thielen would be 2, and you'd have Xavier Legette back there, and all of a sudden you have a really good receiving core. So I don't know if it can happen. I just think if you're a Panthers fan, somehow, some way, that would be like the best thing that could ever happen to this organization. I don't know, in the last 10 years. Somehow go get that guy. during free agency. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Dewey wants to chime in. What's up, Dewey?
Yes. Well, actually, the best thing that can happen to the organization is dissolve. But on a positive, they played with heart yesterday, and that was good.
They did.
And honestly, they should have. They should at least maybe won 3 or 4 more games. But they lack consistency, and like you said, depth and all sorts of stuff. Ownership sucks. Their coach sucks. They need a whole new thing for the players. They showed heart. I think they'll win one more game more next year.
All right, Dewey, appreciate that. We'll see. Only one more game?
And to his point there, he's not wrong. They should have at least won one more game. They should have beat Tampa in week number 13. And by rights, they should have beat Kansas City in week 12.
They were close.
They were very close in those.
What was the game where Xavier Legette dropped that ball? Was that Philadelphia? Right there at the very end? I think it was, where he dropped the ball, and, I mean, hardly any time left on the clock. It was a great throw by Bryce Young. I mean, I think it was the Eagles where he dropped that.
I mean, think about it. They took Kansas City, Tampa Bay, and Philadelphia, 3 really good teams in a row, and lost all of those games by less than a touchdown.
It's true. David on the Facebook stream says Cowboys did Cooper Rush wrong, cheated him out of his $500,000 Jerry Jones crook. Yeah, he didn't let him get that incentive. He sure didn't. All right, speaking of what happened in the NFL in Week 18, some of the bad, boring games yesterday, well, those were gone. NFL Wildcard Weekend is set. We will take our first look at what is happening. The NFL Wildcard starts on Saturday. Diesel found my expert weather report during the commercial break, which you can see as well at the Fan Upstate Facebook and Instagram.
It was nice. I like the red part where you're like, the red?
Red's bad.
That's not good.
Yeah. Everything else, it's not good.
The problem, Cole, is you don't look anything like Yannette Garcia.
What about Chris Justice?
The famous, you look a little bit more like him, yeah. It's fun how overseas the weather meteorology teams are absolute smoke shows. Here, not so
bald
much.
Guys.
We got bald guys, yeah.
You know what's funny, though? I pick fun. Like, I get that nobody really knows, but I just think, like, not to get off on a tangent here, it's the biggest scam in America being a weatherman. I mean, literally, you're looking at models, and I know, like, you know more than I do. I get that. You know all these little models and plus signs, and I understand that. But at the end of the day, you're never right.
Well, and the fact that when it says there's like a 50% chance of precipitation, they don't mean there's a 50-50 shot you'll get some rain.
Yeah.
It's like this whole formula that says 50% of your area will see some rain over a 2-hour period. The hell does that mean? Is it going to rain or isn't it?
We don't know. And neither do they, but when we know and it starts snowing on Friday, if it does, then they'll know.
Well, I got 4-wheel drive. I'll be fine.
And you know what's interesting?
You
funny.
don't.
No, and I don't. Not my Ford Focus. Funny story about meteorology school. I joked about in that video. I was so bad in college. I was so bad at science. My advisor came to me and said, "Hey, look, we got to get you out of here. You got to graduate. We're going to put you in meteorology." And I passed. I passed it online.
Is meteorology school basically the TV news version of being a chiropractor?
Could be. It's a pretty good. I mean,
I was like, this kid's not going anywhere in life. Let's make him a chiropractor.
Yeah, just throw him in there. I passed a meteorology class, so I was able to graduate.
So you were almost a meteorologist.
Yeah, listen, I can say I have an expert opinion because I took a meteorology class.
I'd love to know
at North Greenville University
because our Tolos will always surprise us with just some really random facts about themselves. Like, what job did you almost have? Like, what career path did you almost go down?
Yeah.
That would have been more interesting than what you're doing now.
It's a good question. All right, Diesel, the NFL wildcard weekend is set. An early look at the postseason starting on Saturday. We'll have game Saturday, game Sunday, and then one Monday Night Football wildcard game. I've always said a few years ago when they implemented that Monday Night wildcard game, I always said I would hate to be the coach and the team that has to play on Monday because if you win, you have a short week. And I know it's just one day, but I don't want any disadvantages in the postseason. So there is a Monday night game 1 week from today. No Monday Night Football tonight, but there will be Monday Night Football again next Monday, 1 week. So the Chiefs got the bye in the AFC, no surprise. The Lions got the bye in the NFC. Let's start in the AFC. Actually, you know what? Let's just let me go on the schedule as it actually looks, so that way we'll know what games are when. Saturday at 4:30, Madcraft's L.A. Chargers kick things off, Diesel. So here's the wild card slate that has been set. 4:30, Chargers-Texans, first AFC wild card playoff game. The Chargers are 2.5-point favorites. The Texans, even though they're 10-7, didn't really have the season that we thought they'd have coming off of a really good year last year with C.J. Stroud. Still some question marks with that team. But Chargers, Texans at 4:30, and then also Saturday night, a division rival game just happened to be the AFC wildcard game. Steelers, Ravens, Baltimore, a 9.5-point favorite. Early lean for these two games. Diesel, start with the Chargers and the Texans.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Let's see. Chargers, Texans, 11-win team, 10-win team. I think the Chargers are just a little more complete than the Texans are. I like the pieces. Justin Herbert is just a little more dependable than C.J. Stroud is. Ladd McConkey has really come on and been really good as a wide receiver for them this season. I think this is going to be a close football game. I like the 2.5 points. I probably wouldn't put this game any more than maybe about a 6 or a 7-point final score differential. I think the Chargers will win this football game. Maybe by more than a field goal. I'll go Chargers by a touchdown.
You know, it's interesting. Madcraft said, so happy to go there and not Baltimore. Interesting point where the Chargers got seated because, like, if you do look at the first round draw, yeah, you don't want to go to Baltimore. You have really no desire to go to Baltimore. So you
don't
feel
want
like
to fight those awful weather conditions.
No, you
either.
feel like you got a good a good draw. You're going and playing in a dome in the first round of the playoffs in the wild card. At 4:30 on a Saturday in January. So I think the Chargers like that. That to me, if they were going on the road to Baltimore, I wouldn't feel good about it. However, the fact that they're going to be playing in a dome. I like him. I like the Chargers, and I think they'll win. I think they'll cover. Maybe we haven't talked enough about LA this season. 11-6 on the season, and I know they're obviously Matt Kraft's team. I don't know if we have any other Charger fans in the upstate or not, but I think you have to give a lot of credit to Jim Harbaugh, Diesel. Like you talk about coming in season one and year one and having the effect that he has had, that Harbaugh's had. The pieces were there in LA. They had the guys. They had the quarterback, most importantly. But how good of a coach is Harbaugh that he comes into the NFL, season one, and all of a sudden it feels like the Chargers are a legit contender. Sometimes I don't think that Harbaugh gets the credit he deserves here.
Yeah, I mean, a guy that's been around the block a handful of times, I think he has a little more of a coaching advantage, even though, he's a second-time first-year coach in the NFL. He's got the advantage over Texas, over the Texans.
I love anytime the Steelers and Ravens play. I love it. It's a divisional game. This one is on Amazon Prime Saturday night. The first game, is it on Prime? No, it's on CBS. So you have a CBS game on Saturday at 4:30. Amazon Prime at 8 o'clock. Steelers Ravens. The Steelers have lost like 4 in a row or 3 out of the last 4. So they're trending in the wrong direction. The Ravens, Diesel, were my preseason pick to win the Super Bowl. I think they're going to take care of business. And then when you look at Sunday's slate of games, it starts at 1 o'clock with another AFC wildcard playoff game, Broncos, Bills. Man, you know what? The Bills are favored to win, and they should be. But based on what I saw yesterday with Denver, 9.5 points seems like a lot. Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Am I wrong by thinking that Bo Nix and Sean Payton might be a little bit of a underdog going into the postseason that you might want to watch out for? Or is it just a foregone conclusion that Buffalo's going to ramrod them here?
I think they're going to win this game. Will it be a blowout? Will it be a 2-touchdown win? Probably not. Now, you were saying with the draw that the Chargers got to play the Texans. It's interesting how we're not seeing too many of these massive weather differential games being played. I mean, Broncos, Bills, those are 2 cold weather teams.
Yep.
Steelers, Ravens, cold weather teams. Packers, Eagles, cold weather teams. Commanders, Buccaneers, warm weather teams. So we're not seeing too many of these games where weather is going to be playing an overwhelming factor. At least it's not going to be a huge advantage for the home team.
Sure.
And I like it that way. I like that, you've got 2 teams that are used to playing in these conditions going head to head to each other. The Broncos, they're good. They're what was the word Rich Eisen used about the Cowboys? Plucky. They're a plucky team. They're an upstart team, and they've got a really good rookie quarterback. I think it's just a little too early for Bo Nix. Give me the Bills by a touchdown.
It's interesting. It might be too early, but again, just like I gave Harbaugh credit, a lot of credit to Sean Payton here, because you came into a situation where Russell Wilson just did not pan out. You go to the draft, and Diesel, you kind of baptized by fire with Bo Nix, just thrown right in. And, man, first season goes 10-7. Like, the NFL football seems right when Denver's good for whatever reason, when they're a contender, a storied franchise that Denver has. And I don't know. I think I'm with you. I think Buffalo wins this weekend, but I don't know that Buffalo covers the spread. I think Denver might keep it a little close.
Also, what does it say about, Josh Allen and these Bills if they lose to a rookie quarterback in the first round? There's been so much conversation around their ability to get it done in the playoffs.
Oh, boy.
And if they're dropping first round games to teams that have, a rookie quarterback and a head coach that's only been there. Is this Sean Payton's first year in Denver? Second year. Second year head coach and a rookie quarterback. I mean, come on. That's bad.
I'll tell you this. To answer your question, if Denver won, I think they'd fire Sean McDermott in Buffalo. I think they would. Last year, they were on the verge. Because of what you said, the lack of success in the postseason. And I know it doesn't help when you have to go against Patrick Mahomes every year, but if they were to lose to Denver, boy, that's an interesting question.
Well, you got to do what it takes to take the next step. Are they Are they comfortable being the bridesmaid and never the bride? No, they're not. They want to take that next step, and that's a difficult step to take because, I mean, McDermott's getting you to the playoffs and taking you on runs into the playoffs every year, but he can't get past
That'd be so fascinating. All right, and then 4:30 on Sunday. I can't wait. So many good games this weekend. Philadelphia is hosting the Green Bay Packers in the NFC wildcard playoff game. Green Bay showed last year in the wildcard game that they were no fluke. They absolutely took it to my Dallas Cowboys, demolished them on their home turf in Dallas. And now, this Sunday, Green Bay going to Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 4.5-point favorite, Diesel. I'm telling you this, to me, and I'm not a Vegas bookie, to me, this is a pick 'em. I think that the Green Bay absolutely has a chance to win. I know, according to Vegas, Philadelphia is a 4.5-point favorite, but I think this could be the best game of the entire weekend. Green Bay, they were a little early, arrived a little early on the scene last year, if you will. But who knows, man? I think that they're here, and Jordan Love's for real. I wouldn't be surprised if they knocked off the Eagles in the first round.
And you know how much it's going to chap Aaron Rodgers' ass to see the Packers if they get it done against the Eagles this weekend?
I love it.
Come on. He's going to be so mad. He's going to disappear for another 6 months.
I'd absolutely love it. 8 o'clock Sunday night, another good one. NBC/Peacock. Washington at Tampa Bay. I heard earlier in the Rich Eisen show, he had a guy on, and I can't remember where he was calling from. And by the way, if you haven't checked it out yet, do so today. Today was day number 1 of the Rich Eisen show, 12-3. I loved it. Diesel and I were listening to it. Really good stuff. 12-3 right here on the Fan Upstate. Commanders Buccaneers. This one's fun because you talk about the storylines clashing here, Diesel. You have a storyline in Tampa Bay of Baker Mayfield, who's been around the block, who everyone seems to pull for in the NFL because of how hard he works and how bad he wants to win. He's a team first guy, and then all of a sudden on the scene comes first year coach in Dan Quinn, first year quarterback Jaden Daniels, first year ownership in Washington, 12-5. Tampa Bay's favored by 3 because it's at home. So basically Vegas is laying this as a pick 'em straight up. As of right now, it's basically a pick 'em game. But boy, I mean, you talk about a team who emerges from this game, whoever emerges as the winner, Diesel, could be a dark horse in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by what happens in this one. You know, like we were talking earlier with Josh Allen, talk about legacy with Baker Mayfield. If he's not able to get it done,
yeah,
you know, he's a little bit older. He's not old by any means in the NFL, but he's getting older, right? And does he have the ability to bring this team back year in and year out? He's certainly shown a massive improvement over what he had when he was in Carolina. Of course, that's a massive improvement over what he did when he was in Cleveland. I wonder if people just start to like pity Cleveland quarterbacks at a certain point. And by the way, do you know who I saw mocked to Cleveland earlier today? Shedeur.
Oh, God.
Could you imagine Shedeur Sanders and how miserable and how vocal he would be?
They'd probably
if he was miserable in Cleveland.
And his dad would not let him go. By the way, Baker Mayfield, 4,500 yards on the season, 41 touchdowns, and 16. I mean,
he's a baller.
Are you kidding me, man?
He's a baller.
Like this dude, he finally, if he goes out and wins and somehow, some way takes this Buccaneers team to and goes on a little run to the playoffs, I think you got to give him his flowers.
That's more yards than Jordan Love by a lot.
Yeah.
By over 1,000, by the way. That's more yards than Bo Nix. That's more yards than Lamar Jackson. That's over almost 1,000 yards more than Justin Herbert. I mean, Baker Mayfield's playing out of his mind.
He's third in the NFL, only behind Jared Goff and Joe Burrow. So he's absolutely playing well, to your point. The very last game, Monday Night Football, in the last NFC wildcard game, the Vikings, the Rams. The Vikings yesterday did not look like the same Vikings team we saw all season. Last night, Diesel, Sam Darnold looked like the Sam Darnold that we've been used to for a very long time. They didn't look good. The Rams are 10-7, kind of sneaky, right? They've shown that when they have their receivers, they're a really good team. I think that going into this game, this is basically a pick 'em as well, because here we go, and I hate to say this, but do you trust Sam Darnold in the postseason?
No. However, as you mentioned before, Rich Eisen, he had a caller who I believe is a Giants fan who was saying, wouldn't it be great if we got Sam Darnold as a Giant? Wouldn't that chap the Jets fans' asses? God, I don't know, man.
Is that where you are? I mean, is that where we are now?
Yeah.
That Sam Darnold's all of a sudden become that guy? Look, I think what he's done this year is absolutely phenomenal. He's had a fantastic season. However, do you trust Sam Darnold in the postseason? That's a completely different conversation. And I don't know that 9 out of 10 people would say they trust him.
Texter says meteorologists and chiropractors probably say the same thing about DJs.
Who's
LOL.
a DJ?
I think he's calling us DJs.
Oh,
we're radio
he
show.
thinks we're DJs.
We're talk show hosts. Thank you very much.
DJs are on music stations.
Yeah,
Texas.
well, I am one of those too.
Oh, that's true.
Texter says last time the Eagles hosted Green Bay in a wild card game, Green Bay won the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Explain to me how that matters.
Wow.
Texter.
He's saying it's going to happen,
it's
right?
an interesting anecdote, but explain to me how it matters. When we come back, Cole, the weekend did not go the way that the South Carolina Gamecocks wanted in basketball. However, we got some pretty dang good basketball being played right here in the state of South Carolina. But is it good enough that we're going to see a South Carolina team make a run into the playoffs or into the tournament? We'll talk about that next. It's funny, Cole, when you make a plan, you have an idea of where you want a topic to go a few days in advance, inevitably that plan gets blown up. And that's exactly what happened to me in this segment going into closing out the show on Friday, creating a promo for today's show. I was asking the question, is Palmetto basketball the best it's ever been right now? And by extension, the state of North Carolina and South Carolina basketball as well. And then what happens? 2 out of the 3 really good basketball teams in the state of South Carolina not only lose, but get absolutely obliterated over the weekend.
You jinxed it.
I jinxed it. Furman, very good basketball team, sitting at 13-2, got blown out on the road at a mediocre UNC Greensboro. And then South Carolina, I mean, did they send the women's team? And that's not even an insult. I'm just, as good as they are, they would still lose to Mississippi State by 40 points. But the men's team got absolutely embarrassed on the road in their SEC opener. The lone team that won their big game this weekend in the Palmetto State is Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson very quietly building a very good resume in the 2025 season already.
Ever since they had the losses to Kentucky and South Carolina, which were, we talked about it, they hurt in terms of the resume. You want to have some early quality wins. You know, they had that win over Kentucky a couple of weeks prior, but they look good now. And even Clemson women, Sean Poppy's come in his first season, and they're starting to build something. I'm not saying they're going to be on the level of South Carolina, but they beat Cal over the weekend. And, upstate basketball, South Carolina basketball, and in North Carolina as well, because Duke's really good. Duke's probably going to get a 1 seed. Like, they're really, really good. But
number 2 right now, by the way, in the KenPom ratings. Number 4 in the country in the rankings. Number 2 in the KenPom.
Who's won in KenPom?
I'm
sorry, I put you on the spot. I was just curious. I didn't know if you had it written down. I do like KenPom rankings.
Auburn. Auburn's number 1.
That makes sense. They're really good. I had Furman keeping that game a little closer. I had them on a teaser. And look, the SoCon's tough, man. The SoCon's a tough basketball league. It is. You've got to be ready every single day, every single weekend. And Furman's a good team. I think that was only their 3rd loss of the year. So
yeah, I do wish that the SoCon could break through and become a 2-bid league. It's unlikely to happen, especially with just the shift of power and the transfer portal. All the best players from the mid-major ranks, they get pulled upwards to the power programs. So it's really, really difficult for those mid-major teams, especially to put together elite teams year in and year out, unless you've got some crazy benefactor or you've got some crazy culture that you're not letting guys get away, or you can attract just as good of players once they leave.
Well, the problem is, Southern Conference is so top-heavy, it's hard to be that one team. Like, it's hard to win the conference. I mean, Sanford's good every year. Mercer's good. UNCG, God, it seems like every year growing up going to Walford games, UNCG would have 6'8" guys at center and power forward. Chattanooga, ETSU, they're all good. We haven't even mentioned Furman yet. Walford's not as good this season, but the SoCon's just a tough league when it comes to basketball.
I wish UNC Asheville would quit farting around and leave the Big South. Yeah. Go to the SoCon. Come on now. You ever been to that arena? UNC Asheville? No, I haven't.
My word.
Is it great? Or is it
no, it's spectacular. Oh, okay. Spectacular. It's one of the nicest basketball venues, man. It's very nice.
I mean, looking around these 2 states, for elite basketball teams out of the ACC, Duke is really, really good at 12-2. Wake's got 11 wins. NC State just pushing over 500. Clemson has 12 wins on the season. The problem with Clemson right now is they're losing too many quad 2 games, and those are going to be the ones that come down and bite you down the stretch. They are currently 3-3 in quad 1 and 2 games.
That's interesting. You said 3-3 or 2-3?
3-3. So they're 2-1 in quad 1 games, which helps, but they're 1-2 in quad 2 games. They're winning great games that make their resume look good.
Yeah.
But they're also losing games that kind of hurt them.
For sure. All right, we'll get into the NFL coaching carousel in the very next segment. Also, because I joked and made fun of meteorologists, I'll give you the most recent update of what they're saying is going to happen this weekend. David Newton of ESPN coming up in about 20 minutes. Cold. We also have Overreaction Monday at 5 p.m. John Whittle, the Big Spur, 520, loaded Overreaction Monday, Tolo. Stay right here because we're going to get right back into it next. It's an overreaction Monday of Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. David Newton coming up 20 minutes from now of ESPN to talk Carolina Panthers. Daily Wires, 4:45. We have Overreaction Monday. John Whittle, the Big Spur. So much to get to. Shedeur Sanders, Diesel teased that earlier. Audio Sports Blitz from the weekend at 6 o'clock. And Utolo, 7. I almost said the wrong one.
Now we're 1 for 1.
Oh, God.
That's like a race you don't want to win.
So good. That's not the text line. Let me try it again. 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326.
It's okay.
3663.
It's okay. It takes a long time to unlearn these things.
That's the new number. If you have no idea what Diesel and I are talking about, the old text line, get rid of it. Just throw it away because we are consolidating. I love the promo. One number does it all. Text or call, one number does it all. 844-326-3663. Save that number in your phone.
I'm going to turn this around for you for the rest of the show.
I know. That's so bad. And the stream, too. That's perfect.
Bam. There you go.
I mean, that's pretty. You know what? I'm 71307 was a. We just said it so often, man.
Uh-huh.
We said it so often. But I'm not going to do it again. Not going to do it. Before we get into the NFL coaches carousel, since I made fun of meteorologist earlier, Diesel, yes or no, do you want snow this week?
Yeah.
Okay, you do.
I love snow.
All right.
I love snow.
No, I do too. I just wanted to make sure you want to.
I love driving in it. No, I love driving in it.
Yeah. Here's Chris Justice over at WYFF4, who does a fantastic job. If you heard me slander meteorologist earlier, forget about that. Here's what he says is the latest update when it comes to what's going to happen this weekend in the upstate.
Watching the potential for a high-impact snow and ice event unfolding this week. Hi, everybody. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Justice, keeping you up to date on what's happening right here. Cold air in place the rest of the week, meeting up with some Gulf moisture that's going to come streaming up. That could lead to snow and, unfortunately, ice across many areas. And, unfortunately, this looks like it could be a high-impact system for many across the South, including the I-85 corridor from Greenville to Spartanburg to Atlanta to Charlotte. If you're new to this channel, please consider following whatever page you're watching here on WYFF4 or
all right, keep going, Chris.
Like
keep
this
going.
video,
keep
subscribe,
going.
And turn on notifications.
Self-promos.
And please, if you will, let me know where you're watching from. That is a key factor that lets me help hone in my forecast a little bit more specific to where you're watching from. First things first, we are about to get cold, if you're not already, across a good bit of the United States. And that's why we've been watching very closely what's coming in. And you can see winter storm warnings up toward the Midwest. It has been a significant snow event for parts of Kentucky.
So basically, in summary, it's cold up north, which means it's going to get cold down south.
Oh,
and maybe you might see some snow. You might. He did mention ice. I hope we don't see ice.
How about this? Everybody, if you need stuff in your fridge, go get it now.
Oh God,
go get it now.
No kidding.
Go
don't wait till the
put the bread in the freezer. The bread can freeze. By the way, it's actually better to freeze your bread.
Yeah.
Than to not. Go ahead and get it. Go get what you need, and have it ready so that when the snow comes in, you don't have to rush to the store.
Yeah, because when all quarter of an inch snow hits, you need all the bread in the store, right?
Yeah. Why did they wipe that out? Why don't you ever go wipe out the healthy food items? Why don't you
ever
wipe
the broccoli?
No, nobody ever wipes out the produce.
Yeah.
You always wipe out the junk food aisle.
On a serious note, though, I hope Western North Carolina is okay with the ice. I don't want them to get a lot of ice because, boy, they've gone through it, right? Just a couple of months ago with September. Hopefully they just get snow. Hopefully nobody gets ice because the ice can mess with power and stuff like that. So, all right, to the text line, 71. Oh, my God.
Oh, you're leading the pack now.
I'm done. I'm quitting for the day.
Now that you've said it, I'm going to say it at some point today.
That's twice in the same segment.
Wow, that's bad.
844.
That's $1 in the jar.
I know. 844-326-3663. Twisted Whisker chimes in and says, do we have final results on the Upset Picks Challenge? Well, it just so happens Diesel does at what time? 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, the final results coming your way.
So if you want to know where you finished, 5 o'clock right here, you better turn it on and leave it on.
And I'm going to ask you this time to actually do it. Go and follow our Twitter page.
Yes.
At the Fan Upstate. Go follow us on Twitter because I'll be posting the final results coming up at 5 o'clock. I've always told you, you don't need to have a Twitter, but we would love for you to come and follow us at the Fan Upstate across on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram. We post video and text-based content and photos all over the place.
Texter says, this is from the 201, BY9 is that guy. NFL quarterbacks nowadays take a few years of full-time play to hit their peak.
Is he that guy? Could he be a guy? Yes, I'm willing to go there. He could be a guy.
Yeah, Texter
but after
says,
one great performance and a bunch of crappy ones, no.
Yeah, you got to see where it plays out.
Yeah.
He goes on to say Panthers have a ton of young talent on offense, figure out the defense to be top 20, and the Panthers will be 100% playoff bound, says the Texter. 431.
Miles Sanders played quite well yesterday.
He did play good. Played really good.
After being out
for
a while.
That's somebody that I thought was a little bit of a bust, but he played well. Texter 431 says, speaking of meteorologist, I was wondering if either of you guys have ever seen the word weather girl, Jennifer
Wojcicki.
Oh,
Wojcicki.
Texter asks, is she a babe or not? Well, we never have seen her.
I wouldn't even know how to type her name in to look her up.
Is she on our station too, or just Texter?
Yeah. You hear her sometimes.
I know who you're talking about. Jennifer Lewinsky. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know if she's a babe or not. She might be. She might not be.
Jennifer Wojcicki. I don't even know if this is right. Meteorologist.
Might be her fake name. It could be like a real meteorologist that doesn't want to give out. I don't know.
It's unkind. It's uncouth to say anything about somebody's appearance, positive or negative.
Yeah, that's true. We're going to stay away from that, Texter. How dare you?
Uncouth. Trying to get us to do things we shouldn't do.
All right. To the NFL coaching carousel, Diesel, you and I did a segment all football season long on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, and it was welfare check, checking on the seats of these NFL and college coaches just to see how hot their seat was. And several of them, well, they're not home anymore. They have been dismissed. Obviously, more to come. Black Monday in the NFL, starting with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars have fired head coach Doug Peterson. They do retain their GM, but instant reaction when you heard that Jacksonville was getting rid of old Doug Peterson.
It's time. I think we all had high hopes for him when he took the job, and we thought, man, this guy's going to be successful. But Jacksonville is, for whatever reason, is proving itself to be a very, very tough place to win, no matter who your quarterback, coach, GM combination is. I mean, they need a special combo to turn that franchise around. I mean, are they one of the worst franchises in the NFL? Yeah,
they're up there.
They've got quality pieces, but for whatever reason, they cannot put it together. Maybe it's because Shad Khan's too busy doing other things.
You know, it's interesting. Doug Peterson, I thought that when he got the job, I thought he was the guy. Having experience, having won a Super Bowl, having been to the mountaintop in the NFL, first season in Jacksonville, guess what? He wins a playoff game. He wins a playoff game his first season there. So I thought he was on the right track. And then all of a sudden, you mentioned it, Diesel, maybe they're cursed. Maybe Jacksonville is just a place you can't win in the NFL. As of right now, Doug Peterson has been fired as a head coach. Also, was something we probably saw coming in the NFL. One more firing. And it's not Brian Daboll, by the way. A lot of people thought it would be Brian Daboll, but it's not. It is Gerard
Mayo.
Gerard Mayo. Thank you.
One and done.
I literally was looking at the article and it went away. Gerard Mayo and Doug Peterson both have been fired. You're right. One and done. That experiment did not last long.
Yeah, that's a shocking one. You know, these coaches, these the hook that pulls these guys off stage is getting shorter and shorter. They're not giving any leeway on these guys, not giving them any time to figure things out. I mean, when Bill Belichick left, this program or this franchise was kind of in upheaval. Yeah. And Gerard Mayo was supposed to be that guy who could step in and do it. But, Robert Kraft in his speech today saying things like, I put him in an untenable situation.
Well, that was your fault.
Yeah, then why are you firing him?
Yeah.
If you understand that you put him in a bad position. I
don't know how you can judge an NFL coach off of one season.
Right.
In his first season. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, Doug Peterson, I think it's warranted, right? Because Doug Peterson was fired, he did have Trevor Lawrence his entire time. For whatever reason, it seemed like they just had terrible luck with injuries in Jacksonville. He has been bitten by the injury bug in the past few years, Diesel. But when it comes to Gerard Mayo, like, who really knows? Who really knows if it was warranted? How dare me, how dare you, how dare anybody sit up here and say, oh, well, Gerard Mayo wasn't a good coach. It was warranted for him to get fired. How do we know? He was there for 1 year. They had no talent. I don't understand.
And a rookie quarterback.
Second-year
quarterback.
And they didn't even start him until – no, it was a rookie, right?
Rookie, yeah.
Yeah, they didn't start him, until a few weeks into the season. They have no identity on offense. Gerard Mayo's not an offensive guy. So, again, is he a good coach? I don't think he's a good coach, but also don't put it on him for not living up to expectations in year one. Those are the two, as of right now, the two job openings, New England, Jacksonville. Fun game that you Tolos can play as well. For those on the text line, 844-FAN phone, as well as on the stream, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Diesel, if those were the only two job openings and you were the hottest coach in the NFL, whether it be Ben Johnson or whoever it is, which one would you look at as a more attractive job, New England or Jacksonville?
Weather-wise, Jacksonville in a heartbeat, right?
True. Yeah.
New England, you got old, decrepit Robert Kraft, who we don't know where he goes at night, and we don't know what kind of establishments he's hanging out in the wee hours of the evening. You got a fan base, though, that will support you till the day is long in New England. You got a growing fan base, a sort of a juvenile fan base. Not to say that the individuals are juvenile. I'm just saying in development-wise, the Jacksonville Jaguars fan base has never really had that thing to latch on to.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. And then you got to consider that Bob Kraft, he's getting up there in age as well. He's not going to be in control for too terribly much longer. I think you take the New England job, even though it's frigid ass cold. You take that one just because you're walking into a better situation where you feel like they've done it before. Bob Kraft has done it before. You have the ability to maybe turn this thing back to where it should be rather than establishing culture for the first time.
So I would disagree with you there. I would say Jacksonville, just for the simple reason of you have a quarterback that's good enough to go win games. He's won a playoff game. You know what you have in Jacksonville. You know what you have to get. You know what talent needs to be acquired. So if I'm a coach and had to choose between the two, I think I'd choose Jacksonville because, Diesel, I'm not completely giving up on Trevor Lawrence yet.
Well, yeah, it depends on if you see something in Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. He's been in the NFL for what, 4 or 5 years now at this point. Do you believe that Trevor Lawrence's career can be salvaged? He's making a tremendous amount of money, right? But can it be salvaged? Can you turn him into a really good football player?
Sure.
If that's the case, then sure, you take the job in Jacksonville, but you also you don't know what you've got with him as far as an NFL quarterback goes. But then, of course, the other alternative is going to New England, where you've got Drake May and a bag of chips out there on the field.
Right. I'll tell you what, man, those were the two firings. But the fact that New York came out and said, we're keeping Brian Daboll. What on earth are you thinking? Brian Daboll has not proven himself. And I know that the general manager and the ownership, they have not equipped Brian Daboll properly. They signed Daniel Jones to a freakishly large deal that did not pan out. Daniel Jones didn't pan out. They let him go. They've had a carousel at quarterbacks, Diesel, but I don't know how in the world you can confidently say, if you're a Giants fan, bringing Daboll back gives me hope, gives me faith. I don't see it. I thought Daboll would have been gone yesterday evening, but the Giants still believe in him.
So this was posted earlier today on Bleacher Report. I want you to give me an A through F grade on the coaching candidates that they have matched up with the openings in the NFL this year. The Chicago Bears and Cliff Kingsbury. C-. Like, Cliff Kingsbury at this point doesn't excite me.
I just don't know if Cliff Kingsbury, he's proven as a coordinator. Maybe that's what Caleb Williams needs. I'd go B-. I don't hate it, Diesel, but I also don't love it.
How about defensive coordinator from the Lions, Aaron Glenn, to Jacksonville?
I don't love that. I'll tell you why. I think Jacksonville needs an offensive-minded guy that can help Trevor Lawrence get to the next level. I think they need a quarterback guy like a Dan Mullen was at Florida, like somebody who knows how to take this quarterback and everything that he's learned wrong, help guide him to become elite. I mean, if you were to defense,
if you were to tell me that Jacksonville hired Aaron Glenn as head coach and hired Cliff Kingsbury as OC, I would say, wow, that's a really interesting combination.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah. I don't know. I don't love that.
A lot of people like this one a lot. Mike Vrabel to the Patriots.
Yeah, and I think somebody brought that up. Let's see. Somebody brought that up on the stream. It was JB on the YouTube stream, and that's probably a likely position for Vrabel to take and to fall into, Diesel, because of his history there. Robert Kraft making the wrong decision last year and hiring Gerard Mayo and then firing him 1 year later to bring in Vrabel. That makes sense. Now, Vrabel's the right guy. Vrabel, that is an A-plus hire for New England if they can hire Mike Vrabel. I just don't know if they're smart enough to do it. For whatever reason, Robert Kraft hasn't shown that he's going down the smart path as of late.
One that the Carolina Panthers would have to contend with, Joe Brady to the New Orleans Saints, the architect of that really good offense in Buffalo.
I said a couple of weeks ago on the radio, you and I, we were talking about it. I said Joe Brady. I had him going somewhere else. It wasn't New Orleans. Maybe it was. No, I think we talked about that. Joe Brady to New Orleans would be absolutely awesome in my mind. He has proven himself at the college level and the pro level. I think he's ready for an NFL job. Obviously, there will be more job openings. You know, the teams that you're calling out, the Dallas Cowboys, who knows? Mike McCarthy, if he'll be retained or not. He has no contract as of right now. Personally, I know there's a lot of opinions out there, Diesel, when it comes to Mike McCarthy. I don't think Mike McCarthy's the issue. I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. There's some really interesting audio from him earlier today when he was asked about it. And he said, look, he said, I'm a winner. He said, I've proven it. Go look it up. And coaches always don't find the right situations. Maybe that's the case here. But I think Mike McCarthy's as good as they come in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl, and he knows what it takes to get there. So we'll see, but I love this time of year. Obviously, these coaches don't. But Doug Peterson out, Gerard Mayo out. Mm-hmm. No surprise there. Which other ones will be open?
Jets still have an opening, too.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they fired theirs during the season.
Rex Ryan is linked to head back to New York for that.
That's interesting. Texter says Jets will also be hiring as well. Most likely, they will either hire a random coordinator or bring back Rex, hoping it's 2009, 2010 again. Look, I love
rebound never works, my friends.
It doesn't. I love Rex Ryan, but I don't know in what world you sit there and look at that and think, oh, that's a good idea. Let's go hire Rex Ryan and go back in time 15 years. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's a good idea.
Well, let's move on to a team that we feel like they made some big-time strides this year in the NFL. Back to the Carolina Panthers and David Newton of ESPN, who writes about the Carolina Panthers. He's going to join us to talk about them and answer all your burning questions next on the Fan Upstate. Well, it's not really sexy to talk about a 5-win NFL team, but when you compare that to where the Carolina Panthers had been, it feels like they've made it to the moon and back. We talked to David Newton of ESPN.com right now. He joins us to talk all things Carolina Panthers. David, number one, thank you for taking the time today. But can you go into a little bit what about Bryce Young changed during his benching that led to the remarkable turnaround after he came back? Even though some of those weren't wins, we saw a much improved Bryce Young. What happened to him when he had time off?
Well, first of all, I don't think they've quite made it to the moon, but they did make it always to Atlanta, Georgia, and back. So, as far as Bryce, I think the key there is he never lost his confidence. Was he probably ticked off a little bit that he was benched and felt like he could still play? Yes. But he kind of focused on moving forward and focused on becoming the best he could be at being the scout team quarterback and backing Andy Dalton. I mean, you saw him on the field during games, bringing players water, slap them on the back, giving them encouragement. He was the same player then, but he was at the end. But I think the fact that he got back in there, he got more confident. And I think more importantly, Dave Canales got more confident in Bryce and what he could call for him. He changed some of the flow of how he called games, and he changed some of the plays he called, put some of the things that he liked into the back, burner, and called things that he knew Bryce liked. And you could see, when he did that it just sort of lit Bryce up. Just he was happy to do it. I mean, I think no play this season that shows more of how far they've come or he's come than the 4th and 1 play where he threw the 12-yard touchdown to Tommy Tremble, and he does a Steph Curry move and turns his back and raises his arms for a touchdown before the ball even reaches the player's hands. I mean, that's so unlike anything that those of us who have covered the team have seen out of Bryce Young and the confidence level. But the players around him have seen that all year. They saw that last year behind the scenes. They just haven't, seen it come out to that level. And it shows just how confident Bryce is in himself and what the direction the team is headed right now to allow himself to do a move like that.
David, today is Black Monday. Several NFL coaches have already been fired, and I'm sure we'll hear of more to come. What do you think Panther fans feel today? Because, in the past few years, Black Monday's been a dreaded day. You've covered the Panthers for a long time. Obviously, it's got to feel good that on Black Monday, you're, as a Panthers fan base, not worried about having to lose your coach and go through another coaching change this season.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. And maybe it shows how far David Tepper's come here, that he didn't give up on this team or this staff and Dave Canales or anybody when they were 0-2 or when they were 1-7 or wherever they were at that point. But he's remained patient and allowed them all to grow together. I think that's very important. You can't change head coaches every year. You can't change general managers every year. If you do, you'll end up being the New York Jets or Cleveland Browns and teams that have not had any success over the last 20, 30 years, at least, getting the Super Bowls and things like that. So I just think that it was time for the Panthers to be in this position to not be doing anything but focusing on the future with the people they have, because every time you take a coach and you change that situation, it's like the cliche, you take, one step forward, 2-3 steps backwards. And that's what kept happening. So, I think it's really significant. I think it's significant that even though they gave up an NFL single season record, 534 points this year, that they really believe in defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero and what he can do for this team moving forward. I'm not saying they won't make some changes on his staff, but, they believe that the man, calling defensive signals and putting this scheme together can take them forward too. I just think there's a lot of positive things that come out of today's, what players were saying, what coaches were saying, Dan Morgan was saying, and just the last few months, the direction this program's gone.
David, take us back a year ago and tell us what it was like being around that franchise, being around the coaches after the season was over, when you end the year on a 3-game losing streak the way they did, not scoring a single offensive point the last 2 weeks of the season, and compare that to ending the season on such a positive vibe this year? Maybe it's a question you won't be able to answer since the answer is now just 24 hours old. But what do you think the building will be like over the next couple of weeks compared to last year?
Well, I mean, last year there was just so much unknown because you already had fired Frank Wright. You knew you weren't going to keep the replacement interim coach. You knew there was going to be a coaching search. You knew there was going to be a change at GM. So you just knew there was going to be a lot more change. And again, every time you take change, you usually don't move forward that fast. So you didn't know what was coming. You didn't know really much about Dave Canales when they hired him and what kind of a head coach he could be. I had a feeling that Dan Morgan was going to be the right guy for the GM just because you knew Dan. I knew Dan as a player growing up and watching him and covering him. There was confidence in there that he had what it took to do that. But you didn't know enough about Dave Canales to know exactly who he would become. And I think what we've seen this year was a lot of growth, not for Bryce, but for Dave Canales and this whole staff and this whole organization. And again, you're right. There was no positivity coming out of last season. There was complete gloom and doom. And this year, today was all about the future and what this organization could be. I'm not saying they're ready to turn the corner and, be a Super Bowl contender next year, but I think they did take a huge step forward by finishing strong. I go back to the Ron Rivera first couple of years. They won 6 games the first year, then 7 games the second year, and you saw growth because each one of those years they won, I think, a majority of their games the last half of the season and finished strong, and that propelled them each year to the next season. And by that third season, they won the NFC South and made the playoffs. So I think this division, just looking at it and what we saw this year, is going to be up for grabs next year. I don't think there's really a dominating team. I mean, Tampa's probably the best team there, and Bryce Young, one could argue, is if not close to the best quarterback in this division with Baker Mayfield, maybe close, maybe even a nudge better as time goes on. We'll find. So again, there was just nothing but positivity came out of the day, and the overall feeling was so much brighter than it was a year ago. Because a year ago it was definitely a dark day, and today was a dark day because it rained and poured down rain when we first started in the locker room. But it felt like sunshine in the locker room.
David Newton, ESPN, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. David, I heard some audio from Dave Canales saying that, hey, Bryce Young is our quarterback. Do you believe in your mind, in your heart, that when the Andy Dalton wreck happened, do you believe this franchise was then at that very moment sold that Bryce Young was the guy?
No, I think it took some time. I think it was probably a month and a half after that before Dave Canales and this organization. I think there were people. I think David Tepper and even Dan Morgan believed totally in Bryce Young had a future here. I'm not 100% sure on Dave whether he did at that point, but I do believe as he saw Bryce grow, as he saw the way he handled adversity. He's a young coach. I mean, this is like we talk about David Tepper and what's happened to him as an owner. I mean, he's had to kind of learn on the fly to be an owner, and in a lot of ways, Canales was learning on the fly to be a head coach, and that was a tough decision he made to bench Bryce Young after a 0-2 start. But as he reiterated today, he did it for what was the best for the organization, best for the team. And I think it really was best for the team because it gave Bryce a chance to step back and get a better picture of what it really took to be an NFL starting quarterback. But at that moment, I know Dan Morgan said there was a plan to get Bryce back in there at some point, but I've gotten no feeling from anybody else there that it was really a true, hard plan to get Bryce back in there as long as Andy was still playing well, or at least well enough to give him a chance. So I do think that was a pivotal point in the organization because had that not happened, I don't think there would have been time for Dave and Bryce to grow the way they did as head coach, play caller, and quarterback. And again, I think what you've seen here over the last month has been, I hate to say nothing short of a miracle, but it's in a lot of ways it feels like it has been.
David Newton, ESPN NFL Nation Panthers reporter. How has Dave Tepper's approach changed? We don't see very much of him anymore because he's not throwing drinks on people and he's not showing up on security footage in restaurants. And it feels like he's taken a big time step back. How have your interactions and your press conferences with him, how has he looked the past couple of weeks?
Well, there have been no press conferences. I'll say that. I've chatted with him a few times at practice and on the sideline, but I wouldn't say he's taken a big step back. I think he's taken a different approach to his step back. He still wants to know everything that's going on. He still is, hands-on, but he's not, I guess, overpowering hands-on. I think he is trusting the people he's hired to make the right decisions and to do the right thing. And I think that's been the key. And I think that you didn't really hear a lot of complaints or grumblings or whatever you want to call it during the rough start of this season. And it never did get great. I mean, they're still 5-12, but I just think he's grown as an owner and learned things that he couldn't have even known 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So again, as Dave Canales has grown with Bryce Young has grown with Dave Canales. David Tepper's grown with this organization, and I look at that as all positive for everybody involved.
David, are there some guys on the fringe in your mind that may or may not be a Carolina Panther in 2025?
It depends on what you mean by fringe. I mean, there's some guys that they probably would like to keep. I mean, Brady Christensen's one that got some starts at center and guard, tackle, and play well, but I think he's proven that he can be a good enough player to start in this league. And I think he's told me today he's going to test the market. He'd like to stay here, but if the right opportunity is there, that he'll probably be gone. That'll hurt their depth because I thought he was really solid there. Austin Corbett, who began the season as their starting center, I think he's probably going to have to move on. He wants to go somewhere where he can be kind of guaranteed a chance to start. I don't think he can say that here right now, the way this lineup is. Adam Thielen today kind of hinted that he might retire. I still think he'll be back, but he's 34 years old, and he's got to take a look at what's best for him and his family. But I still think he's got a solid year left to offer. So I guess the one that I would be most curious about would be, besides the specialists, because all three of them are up in the air, but I think you'll see at least a couple of those back. I'm curious about Shaq Thompson. I think they want him back. He wants to come back. He said he wanted to finish as a Panther. But getting to his age, exactly what he would take from a new contract to come back with his injury history, I mean, it's going to take probably a team-friendly deal for him to do that. But I think his leadership in this group would be really good addition to keep. And I don't know many places he could really go right now and get a big deal. So if he wants to stay here, I think that's one you got to pay attention to.
David, depending on which mock draft you looked at, the Panthers are linked to Abdul Carter, edge rush out of Penn State, Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia, possibly McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Having the needs that the Carolina Panthers have going into next year, but also the fact that they feel okay to decent to good in some positions about who they have in place now, it feels like for the first time in a long time, the Panthers can really just go best player available. Do you feel the same way?
No, I feel like they'll take the best defensive player available. And the ones you mentioned are why. It's going to be a strong defensive draft. If the Penn State edge rusher falls all the way to number 8, I don't even think they'd have to take a second to put I think they'd take him. But I guess that was the biggest drawback of them winning on Sunday because, they went from a potential top 5 pick to number 8. And I don't think, him and even the Michigan linemen are going to fall all the way out of the top 5 or top 6. And those are really good players. I think could really help this defense a lot. I mean, you go back to after that dreadful 2001 season where they won one game, in 2002 where they drafted Julius Pepper with the 2nd pick. That kind of propelled them to the 2003 and the Super Bowl. They need to get a guy on defense that can be a star player, can put pressure on the quarterback, whether it's a lineman or an edge rusher.
It's interesting, David, when you look at the draft that's coming up in April. Obviously, we'll continue to talk about that. Biggest need versus best player available has always been a very interesting conversation. What do you think, though, when you talk about today the momentum of this franchise being positive and being able to obtain their goals for 2025/2026, what do you think, other than the draft, could happen during free agency? Obviously, salary cap comes into concern there that the Panthers could do to upgrade this roster without having to rely on the draft.
I would keep an eye out for maybe a number 1 receiver out of free agency. I don't know if they can pay the money that T. Higgins out of Cincinnati would want. But I don't think the Bengals can pay two receivers number one money. So I think he'll be available in free agency, but I just don't know if you want to spend that much on a receiver at this point. They're not, teams don't let go of their edge rushers very often, so they're not going to be any of those guys, at least the young guys that they could build around to be older veterans like they got this year with Clowney. So I think if you can find a young star, like, I'm not saying Higgins is coming here at all, but I'm saying a young star like Higgins and that kind of a player that you could get it here and grow around him, I think that would be probably an area they'll look at right now.
David, as always, we appreciate your time. Fantastic stuff, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys. David
Newton, ESPN, always a fantastic job. We will take a look around the sports world next in our Daily Wires. Getting you caught up on what's happening in the world of sports. We call them the Daily Wires. It's the Daily Buzz. 2025 college baseball preseason top 25 from Perfect Game came out today. The Clemson Tigers, number 8 to start the season. In the first preseason poll, Texas A&M, LSU, Virginia, Georgia, and Tennessee top 5. South Carolina not in the Perfect Game top 25 as of yet, with first-year head coach Paul Maneri.
I think that'll change by the end of the season.
Oh, I do too. I cannot wait for college baseball season. Me and you had so much fun last year because both teams were really good, and I pray that continues because it's fun when our teams are good, right? So we look forward to that. College baseball, man, it'll be here soon. Diesel, the Jacksonville Jaguars have fired head coach Doug Peterson, and the New England Patriots have joined the party and fired Gerard Mayo. 2 coaches in the NFL gone. Just like that. I mean, how cool is that? The Daily Wire on the TV, literally matching up in sync. Miami Dolphins wide receiver yesterday, visibly upset in the post-game press conference. I don't even know, bruh. This is my first time. I haven't been in the playoffs, he said. For me, I just have to do what's best for me and my family. If that's here or wherever the case that may be, I'm about to open up that door for myself. I'm out, bro. That was his exact words.
Tyreek Hill, by the way.
Yep. Did I say?
No, you never said his name.
My bad. Sorry. Tyreek Hill. He said, I'm out.
Plus, he gets pulled out of his car in Miami. Can't drive down the street in Miami.
Well, you know what? I get it. You went and chased a bag, and I don't blame you. I probably would have done the same thing, but you forfeited championships. You forfeited playing in the postseason. You forfeited playing in January and February because you wanted to go to Miami. And you, Tyreek Hill, said that Tua was a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. You said that, not us. You said that. So, what do they say, Diesel? The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Hey, we're going to talk about in about 2 or 3 more of these Daily Wires about a college quarterback who's doing the exact same thing and never even sees the field.
Only in the 2025 college athletics can that happen. You're right. We're going to get to that. Over the weekend in college hoops, Clemson defeated Cal 80-68. Furman, tough loss to UNCG, a really good UNCG team, 84-67. I'm sure Furman will bounce back. They're expected to have a very good season, so it'll be fun to follow them the rest of the year. Wofford defeated ETSU 81-78 over the weekend. South Carolina men, they fell to Mississippi State 85-50. Is that a typo?
Were they sitting a bunch of guys too?
They should have, because did I put that right? 85-50.
35-point road loss to open SEC play. That's brutal.
Rough. That is rough for the Gamecocks. However, Dawn Staley, she said, hey, y'all may not be able to beat Mississippi State, but I can. 95-68 win for Dawn Staley's team over the weekend. Clemson women, Sean Poppy, first-year head coach, they also got a win over Cal this weekend. Georgia quarterback, I believe this is what you were hinting at, Diesel. Jaden Rashada plans to file the paperwork required to enter the NCAA transfer portal. A source told ESPN's Pete Thamel on Sunday. Rashada, the number 31 overall recruit in the 2023 ESPN 300, did not appear in a single game in his lone season as the backup for the Bulldogs.
Imagine coming out of college, Cole, with $500,000 to $1 million to $1.5 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Never having seen significant snaps at any of your stops. I mean,
I'd be fine with it.
There's a possibility of this. He might be the greatest quarterback that never played.
Hey, it never got injured, never got CTE, never got a concussion. I mean, look, I think he's winning here.
Where was he before Georgia? He was at Arizona State, right? How many schools has he been at?
Is that right? Was it Arizona State last? I have to look it up. Walt Disney and Fubo TV are merging their online live TV operations, with Disney integrating Hulu plus live TV into Fubo TV. Disney will now own 70% of the new venture, while Fubo TV will hold the remaining shares. The merger excludes Hulu's subscription video service, and the new entity will operate under the Fubo and Hulu's live TV brands. If successful, the combined services would become the second largest digital pay TV provider. Wow.
I can't stand streaming TV just because every season the contract changes and I have to go find a new place. I have to create a new account.
Yeah.
I have to get new logins. I have to give someone else my credit card information just to watch my games. It's brutal how fast this changes.
In the NFL, Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson faces a setback in his recovery. No, not at the massage parlor, on the football field.
Oh, that therapy's going real well, I hear.
From his Achilles tendon surgery, casting doubt on his availability for 2025. General Manager Andrew Berry confirmed the issue, revealing it was discovered during a routine medical evaluation. And lastly, terrible, terrible news for the Green Bay Packers, who have a monumental game coming up on Sunday against the Eagles. It was just on TV a few minutes ago, breaking news that Christian Watson has tore his ACL in the loss to the Bears. So just tragic for them as Jordan Love, man, I thought they might be able to make a playoff run, but losing Christian Watson is a big deal. Multiple sources have said that the Chicago Bears have sought permission to speak with Mike McCarthy regarding their head coaching vacancy. They've requested that. I also saw where they requested to speak with Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions as well. He was trying to decide where he was going to go last year, ended up coming back to Detroit, which was a big win for Dan Campbell. But I expect Ben Johnson to be somewhere.
If I'm Ben Johnson, I want to stay where I'm at. I want to win Super Bowls. I want to have fun.
Well,
he's making a tremendous amount of money as a coordinator in the NFL. He could stay there, keep making a lot of money, keep winning football games, or he could go to some terrible situation and have to rebuild it from scratch.
It's interesting. It really is. We'll continue to monitor the coaching carousel in the NFL. Texter says, I was trying to find out where I ended with the upset picks challenge. The last game I chose was Navy over OU. Thanks, Percy. Well, Percy, good news because
we're going to get to the final results of the upset picks challenge brought to you by Ingles next, right here on the Fan Upstate. we have the results. They're posted right now on the Fan Upstate on Twitter. We'll get to where you finished in the very final results of the 2024 Upset Picks Challenge, brought to you by Ingles. Right after we talked to the Leprechaun of Lyman, who said he was listening earlier, very happy. I'm sure he's going to have some really positive things to say. Leprechaun, what's up, my friend?
Hey, woo! Yeah, boys! Put some sugar on me, baby! How about those Irish? For the first time in this Leprechaun's life, ND has won a major bowl game! The 32-year drought is over! But this season is not. The Nittany Lions' favorite color seems to be the color white. They'll be waving that flag of surrender when our gold is shining bright. We've beaten dogs. We'll beat these cute, cuddly kittens. Irish destruction is coming. Penn State won't know what hit them. And when the ball is over and I'm enjoying my orange, and we've dismantled these kitties and sent them to storage, who's the team we'll be praising? Can you say with me their name? Come on, give a big old hoo for that grand old Notre Dame. Woo-hoo!
Wow.
Excellent job as always.
Wow.
Excellent job as always.
I need ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Oh my word. That was outstanding.
That was good. That was good.
Outstanding.
I'm glad that he's excellent at making rhymes, because he's not great at picking upsets.
Ooh,
not great at picking
burn.
upsets. Leprechaun of
I
Lyman
can't say anything.
finishes the challenge with 19.5 points. He is not even close to the highest ranked Notre Dame fan in the Upset Picks final standings. Notre Dame Nate finished with 37 points in 26th place, but I'm sure Leprechaun of Lyman would say a hiddly hoo and a tip of the cap to you, Mr. Notre Dame Nate, for your performance.
Pretty impressive. I wish I could say I was excited. I wish I could say, oh, look at the look at the standings
How many
online.
points did you have?
They were not many. They were not many points. No, I had 9.5 points.
9.5 points. Womp womp.
Pat McAfee and I both. Pat McAfee, though. I mean, we both had
tied
9
with Pat
points.
McAfee.
That's all I'm gonna say.
You know, Mr. Get Drunk on Television.
Yeah.
Curse Pat McAfee.
I finished 78th in the Upset Picks Challenge. Not first, not second, but 78th. Hey, I didn't finish last, though. I didn't
That's
finish
good.
last.
You know who did finish last? Ruby Downs.
Yeah, that didn't surprise me.
But technically, Ruby didn't finish last. She finished next to last, because there's like a bajillion way tie for last place with 0 points in the Upset Picks Challenge. But Mr. and Mrs. Irrelevance in last place, Ben in Simpsonville, Brian Andrews, Bonefish Girl, and Ruby Downs all finished with half a point. Is it better to finish with half a point or no points at all?
Listen,
that's
half
an
a
existential
half
question.
a point.
Yeah.
I don't believe Ruby Downs still understood what the. I still don't know today if she knows. I mean, I don't even know. She's probably like, "How did I get involved in this challenge?" Anyways,
she would text me favorites sometimes, and I'm like, that doesn't help.
Right,
you're picking the wrong team.
Right.
Melissa Level from Ingles Markets finished with 4 points, but she would tend to pick her own Florida State Seminoles a lot. And that was not necessarily the best strategy. Now, Cole, there's going to be a lot of Tolos mad about the final results, because there was a lot of Tolos who didn't pick in the final 2 weeks of selections.
Yeah, people went on Christmas and checked
Who do you
out.
think you are
going
on vacation, not paying attention to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson?
It was hard. I mean, a lot of the, you and I were out at Christmas and then Thanksgiving. It was tough because we had games, but you're right. A lot of Tolos didn't pick. Probably just confusion and forgetfulness of not getting their picks in. But hey, like you said, you had to get them in. Congratulations, though, to all those who did make picks, because we had an extremely, and again, your participation, your interaction on the show, it's been great all year from March, the time Diesel and I started the show, but more participation on the Upset Picks Challenge this year than
ever had. Yes, we cannot thank all of you enough for being a part of this thing and for making your picks. Dan B is usually on top of it when it comes to individual little stats and figures and the total number of picks that we got, the total number of weekly participants that we got over the course of this thing. And I'm sure he's going to get me those down the road. But without further ado, here are your final top 25 results in the Upset Picks Challenge. Remember that typically 40 points-ish is good enough to win the Upset Picks Challenge. Normally 40 will get you there right at the tippy top. Well, 40 wouldn't have got you inside the top 15 this year.
Ooh.
In first place, well, you know what? Let's do this the opposite direction. Let's go 25 down to 1. In 25th place with 38 points, Hurricane Jeff. Congratulations to Hurricane Jeff.
And he entered late as well.
He did, as did this Tolo, Gravy. Gravy got in late. He made by far the biggest upset pick we've ever had. He took was it Kennesaw State over Liberty when Liberty was undefeated.
Yeah.
And Kennesaw State had not won a game as an FBS team yet. He took that pick, and I think he got one more right down the stretch. But Gravy ends up with 39 points, tied in 21st place with Bo Mo. Actually, it's a four-way tie for 21st place between Clemson Jeff, Amazon Guy, Bo Mo, and Gravy. Those four had 39 points. In 19th place, we had a two-way tie between ESPN's Reese Davis and Scotty Mack with 39.5 points. In 17th place, how about this? Another Tolo who got into the challenge late, Harold.
Wow.
Had 40 points, tied with Brandon Gosnell. 40 points. Congratulations. And as a matter of fact, we have Harold on the line right now. Harold, do you have any words of advice? Do you want to gloat a little bit and tell all these jabroni Tolos that quit on us down the line that anything is possible when you just stick to it?
Well, I just want to crack the top 25, but I had me at 41 points. I mean, if Navy Oklahoma was 7.5, you know, really I only missed two picks. Navy starting off against Notre Dame.
That's awesome.
And stinking Tennessee. And I can't stand them, so I picked them. I deserve what I got. But that's a lot more than I figured, you know. But I got 41 points. And, you know, if I had to change those two picks, I'm 79, I believe I'd be right there at it, 77 to 78.
There you go.
I had two picks I changed. One was 19.5. I know for Stanford. I can't remember what Oregon State was, but it was way up there because I switched them all for Army in 14, so it was more than that. But listen, that's why I feel confident. I said I'm going to make 80 this year. Listen, boys, I'm going to shoot for 100.
Woo!
I like it.
All right, Harold.
Right. Listen, I'm enjoying it. And
Harold, you did great, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
Yes, sir.
You did, man.
And yeah, see, the point of this challenge is not necessary. You want to finish in first place. Yeah, that's great. But to show if you can put together 30, 40, 50 points in this challenge, you got some sort of shine on you. You figured it out.
Oh, yeah.
In 16th place, we had this Tolo text in earlier. Percy had 45 points. Congratulations to Percy in sole possession of 16th place. In 15th place, we had Jake Crane from Crane & Company with 46.5 points. Nick Saban finished with 48 points. He was in 14th place. Of course, when we say Nick Saban and Reese Davis and guys like that, we pull their picks off of their Superdog picks on their television show. Roger Carper and I tied at 12th place with 50.5 points. There was a point in the season where I had like 14 points, Cole, and I came charging back.
That's impressive.
At the end of the season.
You and Roger did good. Top 12.
Feeling good about that. In 11th place, CJ from Greer. He had 53 points. Now we get on to the top 10. Clemson Oculus had 53.5 points. He's in 10th.
That's pretty good.
In 9th place, 55.5 points for T. Ray. In 8th place, Billy Horn had 57 points. Congratulations to you, Billy. In 7th place, Maze and Brew with 59 points. 6th place, Reed Atkins, 59.5 points. And here we come to it, the top 5. Justin L. finished overall with 63 points. He's in 5th place. In 4th, Noel with 71 points. In third place, Joe D with 72. In second place, John Dog with 74 points. And lapping the field, cruising to victory with a 10-point lead. Twisted Whisker scored 84 points this year. Absolutely
that's unbelievable.
Crazy.
80 plus. That deserves a golf clap.
That does. I mean,
deserves a chest bump,
so
man.
we had, 14 weeks of the season, 15 weeks of the season, if you include conference championship games.
Yeah.
He finished with 84 points divided by 15. He averaged 5.5 points.
You're good, man. That's
week.
impressive. I never thought that we would have any Tolo hit 84.
That's absurd.
Also, I want to shout our Tolos out. How about this? We had the celebrity picks. No celebrity picks in the top 10. Our celebrities said, our Tolos rather, said, hey, this is the Tolo challenge. They didn't let the celebrities in. Look at that. All Tolos between 1 and 10.
How about that?
Even top 12 where you and Roger Carper are. Nick Saban was the only Tolo. Oh, I'm sorry. Nick Saban and Jake Crane only ones in top 15.
I feel like Nick Saban has got a distinct advantage over all of us.
Yeah.
He's got a career and a lifetime of knowledge.
This is a great text. I think there's some sarcasm here. Texter Tolo Keith in Fountain Inn says, did my pick at 422 on 1220 for Syracuse over Washington State for 15.5 not count? That's got to be a joke. There's no way that was true. But again, I want to say congratulations to Dan B, because while Dan B didn't do the best in the challenge this year, are you kidding me? The amount of work that Dan B puts in, absolutely hats off to Dan B.
To Tolo Keith's point there, we were live on the air that day. I was live on the air that day. You were off on vacation.
Yeah.
Tolo Keith, if you feel like an error has been made, let us know.
Yeah, let us know if you're being serious.
Take that screenshot, Tolo Keith, of what you sent me and email it to me, diesel@thefanupstate.com.
Tolo Keith wants a recount.
And if we made an error, Tolo Keith, it's okay. It's okay. It happens, hosting the show alone that day. It's hard to copy and paste every single text with 100% accuracy. If you feel like we made a mistake, we will go back there and fix it for you, Tolo Keith in Fountain Inn. So if we need to fix it, we will.
I got to step my game up next year, though.
Yeah, you really do. You were terrible at it this year.
I mean, it was just not good. I blame it my first year. It's the first year ever participating, so that's what I blame. 844-FAN phone. That's the number you use to call and text into the show.
I'm trying to find where Tolo Keith finished as far as before. If we correct this error, Tolo Keith finished with 24.5 points.
Not bad.
And if he is correct on his pick, man, Tolo Keith stands to make a big time jump.
Oh.
He would end with 40 points.
Tolo Keith, man, he wants a recount.
He would jump up there and tie with Harold at 17 points. So Tolo Keith, it's all good. If we made a mistake, we will fix it for you.
Someone who was not in the top 25 or even on the leaderboard at all.
Did Tom even make picks?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Tom wants to chime in. Tom in Somerville. What's up, Tom?
Well, I got a question. Did y'all watch the Gamecocks basketball team Saturday?
The men's or the women's? The men's, right?
The men.
No,
yeah.
I did not. I didn't miss anything.
You sure they didn't send a boys under 18 team out there?
Ooh.
Well, here's my question for both of you. If you were to play an organized basketball game this week, do either one of you think you could make more than 2 3-pointers in a 40-minute game?
You would hope, right? Well, Diesel and I
guarded by quality athletes? No.
2 of 19 were the South Carolina Gamecocks from 3 on Saturday.
You sound depressed,
2 of
Tom.
19. Because football season's over, and now I got to watch this basketball team get their brains beat in for 39 days.
But you've got women's basketball.
They're a top 75 Ken Palm team, Tom.
That won't be the case for long. Have y'all seen their schedule?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Oh, my goodness.
At least you have women's basketball.
I think they play 5 top 25 teams in their next 6 games. See, Tom, here's the hard part about being a South Carolina Gamecock. It's true for both basketball and football. You can improve year over year, but your record get worse because you're playing in the toughest conference.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. The team last year was really good. I don't think they have the roster this year to even sniff, 18 wins looking at the rest of the schedule. They're 10-4 right now. They may be 10-12 before they win a game again. It's going to be a long year for the basketball team, but I got to say this. We're 39 days away from opening day in baseball.
Yeah.
The Gamecocks host Sacred Heart that first weekend. Okay.
Ain't that the hospital from the TV show Scrubs?
I don't know. I think so. I mean,
I didn't know they had a softball team.
Yeah. But I'll say this. I think Paul's going to have him a squad this year.
Oh.
And I was talking to somebody this weekend, and they're pretty confident in the bullpen, which under the previous staff, that was always an issue.
Sure.
So I am uber excited for Gamecock baseball this year because it's about time the baseball team goes back home to Omaha. It's been way too long.
It has been.
And I don't know if I'm going to call the shot for Omaha yet, but I do think I am making a prediction that this baseball team will be a top 8 seed come June, and it's going to be the funnest baseball team we've seen in a long time out of Columbia.
Tom, didn't you make a big bold prediction that the Gamecocks were going to win 9 or 10 games early in the season this year?
9, yeah.
I did.
Well,
I did.
Why are you unwilling to do the same thing for the baseball team?
I just got that same kind of feeling.
Tom's skipping right over basketball, going straight to baseball.
And I love basketball. But it's going to be one of those years for the basketball team. And historically, with South Carolina basketball, when they make the NCAA tournament, the very next year is always a disappointing down year. And I like Lamont Paris. I think he's going to be a great basketball coach in Columbia. But it's just one of those things. This team's got to get a lot better.
Yeah.
And the conference, the SEC is this is the best the basketball conference has ever been.
Yeah, it's tough.
And there's just too many dogs that are better than them in front of them. And it's just going to be, unfortunately, I think it's just going to be one of those years. If they make the NIT this year, I think you got to live with that.
Okay.
But after I watched that on Saturday, that was bad.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State's a good team, but they aren't near as good as Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida. It's going to be one of those years where you take a lot of lumps.
It is.
And
Tom, thanks for the call. We've got
to
to run to a break. We're going to get to JD.
9 SEC teams in the top 25 right now.
Oh, it's brutal. It's
Tough.
brutal. JD, what's up, man?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, gentlemen. And he's right. Tom is right. The basketball team is in for a terrible year. As soon as I saw us losing to Radford Highlanders and the Presbyterian College Blue Hose at halftime a few weeks ago, I said, y'all better buckle up for SEC season because it's going to be rough. And then not only that, we were losing by 25 at half. We didn't even close the gap. We gave up 10 more points to lose by 35. So Lamont Paris, man, you got to find some dynamic scorers. We got to find somebody that can shoot the ball. The inside game's pretty good, but we have nobody that can shoot the ball. So my overreaction on this Monday is that the Gamecocks might not win an SEC basketball game this entire season. Y'all be blessed.
Wow. Might not win an SEC.
That is overreaction.
Not even against Vanderbilt? Come on.
I don't
Come on.
know.
You're gonna beat Vanderbilt.
That's quite the overreaction, JD. I like it, though. All right, we are going to run. We have John Whittle, Big Spur, joining us on the other side to talk about the Gamecocks. We'll get into that next. Talking all things Gamecocks, you can text the show 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. One number does it all. Bringing on John Whittle, reporter covering South Carolina athletics for the Big Spur 247 Sports. Fantastic guy, fantastic. John does a fantastic job. I've always loved following John and his work. His first time on Wire to Wire. John, we had a caller in the very last segment that was excited from where the football team was for South Carolina, excited for the momentum that Palmetto has heading into baseball season. But John wanted to this particular listener wanted to skip over basketball season. Is that fair in your mind, or you think it's going to be a long year for the Gamecocks?
Well, I'll say this. Just watching them up to this point, it seems that way. But knowing like what's on the team and the talent level that they have, like they've got a chance to still be competitive. I mean, I don't think this is a team that should be in the conversation for bottom 3, 4, or even 5 in the SEC. Like this team's good enough to be much better than that. Now, they haven't played anywhere close to it. They haven't played with the type of energy and urgency and so forth that you would expect out of any college team, but certainly one that that's being coached by Lamont Paris. It doesn't look anything like what they played like last year in terms of effort, in terms of fight. So, you know, if they don't pick it up from that standpoint, you know, I can see just skipping over it, but you know, there's 17 games left of league play, but the first one sure was not inspiring.
John, this is Diesel here. Thanks for taking the time to join us for the very first time. You know, it feels kind of absurd to ask this question. So I want you to think about it through those terms, that it is absurd to ask this question. But in your time covering Jeremiah Donati since he took the job, and in any conversations that you've heard from him, how patient or understanding do you think he's going to be willing to be with Lamont Paris, knowing that the SEC is a gauntlet in basketball? 5 of their next 6 games are against ranked teams. I mean, they've got a really, really tough stretch down the road over the next couple of weeks. How long of a leash is he going to give Lamont?
Well, plenty for right now. You know, I mean, he just signed a new contract, and I never thought I would have to have buyout numbers in front of me right now to see what it would be like, but it's not. I mean, it's like this year's out of the question, and it should be. And you know, he's still getting his feet wet. Like today was the first real official day that he's been here. You know, he was back in Texas. He went down to Orlando I think he got there the day before the bowl game, and you know, is just now kind of getting settled in. So even though he was announced about a month ago, he hasn't really gotten started yet. So I think the first, you know, 3, 4, 5 months of his job, I mean, taking Lamont Paris out of it, the first few months of his job are going to be kind of getting a lay of the land. And, you know, South Carolina's athletics department in general is in a really good place right now. And that goes with coaches as well. You know, South Carolina just hired or let go or had retired, you know, several coaches, and Ray Tanner hired a handful of really good ones here within the last year. You know, he doesn't have a lot to do from a coaching standpoint, and to include Lamont Paris. I think his first few months, 4 or 5, something like that on the job, is going to be kind of evaluating the entire athletics department and getting a lay of the land before, you know, figuring out the directions that he wants to go, some changes he may want to make.
You can follow him on Twitter at John M. Whittle. John Whittle, reporter covering South Carolina for 247 Sports and the Big Spur. John, you got a really awesome shout-out from Shane Beamer a couple of weeks ago on a really good piece about Ray Tanner, the memories and all that crossed paths with Ray Tanner over his tenure at South Carolina. Obviously, you were there. You covered him, and even when he was a baseball coach. What do you think Ray Tanner's legacy will be at South Carolina?
Well, it certainly should be a great one. I mean, there's certainly some things here that have happened during his time as athletics director that people can quibble with and not like and not understand or whatever. There's certainly been some problems. It's really with basically any athletics director, but there's been a lot of good that's happened under him, whether it's championships that he's either coached in or been athletics director for. There's been SEC championships. There's been so much good on the court and on the field, but there's been so much good in everywhere else too, in terms of graduation success and just having student athletes happy. And you listen to Jeremiah Donati talk at his opening press conference, and he listed four objectives and 4 goals of what he wants out of his athletics department, and the last one was wins and losses. And there's so much more to being an athletics director than just what the wins and losses look like. It's obviously a big part of the job, but they don't coach. They hire coaches who bring in players, and the athletics director's job is to be sure that those coaches and those athletes have the opportunity to be successful on the court and off of it, on the field and off of it. That's the athletics director's job. And Ray, I think in large did a good job of that. And obviously, his accomplishments on the baseball field were incredible too. So, I think there's certainly some who are ready for a change and some new blood, and I get that. But at the same time, I think South Carolina's. I think Ray Tanner's tenure at South Carolina is ultimately going to be looked at as a very good one. If there's a Mount Rushmore of South Carolina athletics, Ray Tanner is certainly one of those guys.
John Whittle of the Big Spur joining us right here on the Fan Upstate, Wire to Wire, with Diesel and Cole Bryson. John, depending on who you ask, Mike Shula was the architect of the Gamecocks' second half of the season offensive outburst, but he's put fully in the driver's seat for the Illinois game, and that performance kind of fell flat, especially through the first 3 quarters until Shane went nuclear, and that kind of woke everybody up. What was your reaction to the game that Mike called against the Illini?
Well, I'm not sure who the folks are who say that Mike Shula was the architect of the back half of the season. That wouldn't be accurate. It was a Dowell Loggins deal, and Mike Shula certainly had his fingerprints on various aspects of it, but he's not the guy who was running the show. So I think that needs to be set first off. But when it comes to that game, I mean, if you're talking about actual play calling, there's very little that I had an issue with. I think the biggest deal for South Carolina was there were a couple of things. I don't think that the offensive staff either did a good enough job of preparing for what Illinois was going to throw at them, or they didn't do a good enough job of adjusting, regardless of what it was. You look at what Illinois was doing from a substitution standpoint, I think that really threw off South Carolina. I think that it hurt their rhythm. I think they did a poor job of getting plays in on time and then not adjusting, whether it was going tempo or just not substituting. Like there's options to get around those things. And Lenore Sellers was never able to settle into that game. He was off for whatever reason. And Mike's down on the sidelines calling the game, and he said himself beforehand, like, there are things that you have to have go right when you're on the sideline. You have to have people up in the booth who you trust to give you the right information and who can be your eyes up there. And I think it was lost a little bit that South Carolina had 2 of those guys who were up in the booth who left to go with Dowell Loggins up to Appalachian State. So you're down 3 sets of eyes in the press box to include Dowell. So, I think there was just a lot that was disjointed about that offensive performance. I thought the actual play calling in terms of play design and rhythm and so forth, rhythm in terms of like what play calling leads one play to the other. Now plays were late and there was no offensive rhythm in general, but I'm not down on Mike Shula too much just yet. But that wasn't a great day for the offense for 100 different reasons.
John, it's interesting when you look at 2025. It's great to see where South Carolina went and got, and what heights they achieved in 2024. But we also know that in the modern era of college football, you have to replace and replenish quickly from the transfers to the recruits that Beamer has gotten. Obviously, a lot of buzz and a lot of talk about a South Carolina transfer at quarterback, even though we know Lenora Sellers is back next season. What do you look at as when you look at the roster that Shane and staff will be putting together? And we know it's not final until about May, but what do you look at as the most safe part of the roster that Shane and his staff has coming back, but also on the flip side of that, the one part of the roster you would say concerns you the most?
Well, I mean, I think you have to feel pretty good at quarterback just in general because of what you have with Lenoris, but you have to have somebody who's a confident backup. And, I think they feel pretty good about Aaron Nolan and what they're bringing in with him. So, I think that's one spot that you feel good about, after today's, commitment at center out of the transfer portal and Boaz Stanley from Troy, who had a pretty remarkable record there this past season. I think you feel really good about what you have on the offensive line from a personnel standpoint. You've brought in 3 graduate transfers who have all played a lot of football. Guess what? That's what South Carolina did last year, and that was pretty beneficial to them. But they also have a bunch of good young talent there as well. So I think you feel good about the talent and depth along the offensive line is as good as you can anywhere. I still am a little bit worried about that linebacker position. They have one transfer portal commitment there right now. You've got Fred Johnson coming back, but you lose 3 really good and productive players, and Demetrius Knight, Bam Martin Scott, and Debo Williams. And I just don't know. You're bringing in a few guys who are freshmen, but I just don't know that position is as shored up as you're going to want it to be. So I think that spot is the biggest concern and for me, but you also look at defensive line. You've lost a bunch on the interior, and you've got to get a couple more interior defensive linemen before you can start really feeling good there. But there's still plenty of time left in the portal, and as you mentioned, there's plenty more to happen. Not only now here in January, but there's another portal session here in the spring, and an opportunity to find some guys in as well.
John, is it national championship or bust for Dawn Staley and this women's team? I mean, they're a very senior heavy team, a junior and senior heavy team. A lot of the talent is back. So much continuity from the roster from last year. Obviously, 14-1 start, a fantastic start for the Gamecocks this year. Is that where this program is right now? It's national championship or bust?
Yeah, I mean, I think you get to that point eventually, right? Like when you recruit so well, you're always at the top of the game. Like it is a national championship or bust. You are very disappointed if you don't win the title. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be some things where you're pleased with if you go out and win an SEC championship. Like that's a nice accomplishment. But at the same time, like when you're at this level consistently, you have to win the title to feel great about how the season went. I mean, that's what Alabama football was like for so long. I mean, that's what Duke basketball was like for so long. And, it just kind of is where the women's program is right now. And as you mentioned, they lost one player from last year's team, but boy, was she a really good player and really transformed, what that team was. And we're seeing that right now. They're trying to win in a little bit of a different way. And, there have been some games where it hasn't been, quite as pretty. Obviously they got blown out by UCLA out in California earlier this year. Of course, they bounced back really well from that defeat. So, but you're right. I mean, I think that's a very fair way of classifying it. And, I think that's a great standard to have. As Dabo used to say up there a lot. Best is standard, and that's what you want. You want to be the best, and if you don't make it and that far and you don't win the national championship, you want to be disappointed. And I think that's where this program is.
John, great stuff as always, man. We appreciate you hopping on with us, taking time to join us, and let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Y'all take care.
Absolutely. You can give him a follow on Twitter. Again, if you missed it, John Whittle, Big Spur 247 Sports, does a fantastic job at John M. Whittle. That's WHITTLE. Isn't that what kind of pressure? I mean, wouldn't you, if you walked into a job every day and knew that the pressure that you had for your job was to win a national championship, I'd quit.
It's an interesting thing to put that kind of pressure on yourself to essentially be perfect, right? Because everybody will always compare every South Carolina team, every team Dawn Staley has in the future going forward. They're going to compare them to last year's undefeated national championship winning team. So, that is a very, very, very high bar to live up to. But hey, when you have built your program the way that Dawn Staley has, when you know that you're recruiting at an extremely high level the way Dawn Staley is, and of course the fact that there's not as much parity in women's college basketball as there is in men's, there's those 5 or 6 or 7 tent pole programs. It's growing. There's becoming more and more of those. So things may get more difficult down the line, Cole, especially now with NIL money out there potentially causing some of these players to make a move. It's a enviable and unenviable position to be in at the exact same time. When we come back, Cole, does the allegations, if you want to call them that, allegations surrounding Shedeur Sanders give NFL GMs pause? What's he accused of doing? And we'll talk about that. Would you maybe pass on Shedeur because of what he did leading up to their bowl game? That's coming up next. Do you remember leading up to the Colorado BYU bowl game when Deion Sanders was saying, all my guys are going to play. We're coming to win. It's a business trip. We want to cap this thing off with a dub. Remember that?
I do remember that, yeah.
So tell me why.
Tell me why.
I kind of knew I'd get you with that. Tell me why it's a good idea, if true, that Shedeur Sanders rented out a strip club for not one but 2 nights for the team ahead of their bowl game. Seems like a bit of a bad idea.
That's business decision or a business trip, all right.
Business trip. Well, they had some business to take care of. Now, Deion, again, said the team was 100% bought into bowl prep, but then they got absolutely embarrassed 36-14. And it's not because Shedeur and Travis Hunter didn't play. They played. They played the whole game.
Yeah.
But they got blown out by BYU. I mean, does that not show that morality wins every time?
Well, it shows that everything you say, everything you are about, your business trip or going focused, I don't know if that adds up. If you're truly going on a business trip, most business trips aren't capped off with a night at the strip club.
Some business trips do.
Well, some
business trips head to the strip club. Cole, this is all being reported by Athlon Sports. A Colorado team source told Athlon that Shedeur Sanders spent thousands of dollars treating his teammates to a 2-night strip club event on December 25th and 26th. He, being Shedeur, made all the employees at the club and his teammates turn in their phones before entering the club. So there could be no record of what happened whatsoever. Now, security tape would exist. I don't think Shedeur probably has the power or the pull to tell a Texas strip club, sorry, you got to turn your security cameras off because they have them. Nobody committed any crimes here, so nobody's going to be subpoenaing the strip club security camera footage, Cole. But if you are an NFL GM and this story comes to light and you're probably the Browns GM, maybe the Patriots GM, a handful of the teams that are sitting right there in the top 3 or 4 spots. Would this give you pause on potentially drafting Shedeur Sanders?
I think I already have a little bit of pause, but I think it'd add a little bit. I think going into it, my pause on Shedeur Sanders would be, and I know this sounds crazy, but the shadow that comes with
distraction.
Shedeur Sanders, and the shadow being his dad, and I remember very specifically because I'm a Cowboys fan when Johnny Manziel went into the draft, I was on edge praying that the Cowboys drafted Johnny Manziel. They didn't. They got Zach Martin instead, offensive lineman Diesel, and Zach Martin ended up being a future Hall of Fame offensive lineman, right? So I think the situation is very similar here. You can get the sexy pick, you can get the name that everybody knows, or you can go and draft a need and have less risk involved. Unfortunately, I do think there's a risk here from a distraction standpoint with it being Prime Son.
Shedeur's a great football player. He's a very good football player, but he's done it at the college level on 2 different teams with the same star player by his side in Travis Hunter, and he's done it at 2 different stops with his dad as his head coach. Now, none of those things are necessarily proof that he can't be an elite player at the next level. But when you have to insulate yourself with perfect conditions or favorable conditions to find success, that does give me a moment of pause. Now, as of right now, I'm on CBSSports.com looking at their mock draft. Cam Ward mocked number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. Madcraft's happy about that because he'll be able to drive up to Nashville and see Cam Ward play again. Unless once they leave Miami, he doesn't care about him anymore.
That's brilliant.
Number 2, Shedeur Sanders is mocked to head to the Cleveland Browns. That's going to be an interesting pick there. It kind of feels like what Shedeur deserves. If this is true, if he could not keep it together for a few more days to get through his bowl and then go party at the strip club, maybe Cleveland is where he deserves to go.
All careers die in Cleveland. Joey, Tolo Joey, wanted to text into the show. He did, 844-FAN phone. Just tuning in for the first time today. Not sure if y'all have discussed the Tolo Fantasy League or not, but I volunteer to be commissioner next season. Okay, Joey, I'll take you up on that. I did a bad job of being commissioner. I will admit that. And who won the Fantasy Football Tolo League? That's next, as well as a ton of sports audio. It was a big weekend in sports if you just woke up, just came out from under the rock. A little audio blitz next. Who won the Wire to Wire 2024 Fantasy Football League? We'll tell you that. Have some audio sports blitz coming for you as well.
Before you answer that question, Cole, what's that orange stuff out there on the horizon?
The orange stuff. Where?
Yeah. If you look out the window.
Sirens?
It's hard to see now that we put these giant window stickers on our studio window. No, not that. That is a street light that's been out for like days.
The sunset?
I'm talking about the sunset. It's 6 o'clock and we can still see a little bit of sun.
Oh, isn't that great?
Isn't it awesome?
Thank God.
I hate it when it gets dark early.
Absolutely hate it. And I count down. I literally count down. March the first week of March. Anyways, NFL fantasy football wire to wire. Congratulations to 2 leagues. So we have 2 winners. Diesel, the first winner in league number 2, the dump button. You know who that is? Shane Barrett.
Shane. Wow.
Congratulations to Shane. One of the 2 winners in the Wire to Wire Fantasy Football League. Shane had a fantastic year. He won 11-3. In the other Wire to Wire League, congratulations to Buckeye Mike.
Wow.
Simpsonville Buckeyes, 11-3.
Mike all over it.
How about that? Those are your 2 winners. They took it serious, man. I did not. I didn't take it as serious as I should have. Joey's already texted and said, all right, Cole, you're fired from commissioner. He said he's going to take over.
Buckeye Mike is a better fantasy player than he is at picking upsets because he finished 69th in the upset picks challenge.
69th. That's not, well, some might say that.
That might be the best position to finish in other than first.
Mine was not, I can't say anything. I did not finish well. So
how'd you do in this challenge?
In the fantasy football?
Yeah.
Oh, not good.
Not good.
My problem was I didn't take it serious. I didn't take it serious like I should have. I never updated my rosters. I was never logging in. I was never doing the things I was supposed to do. And you know what? Joey has a point. I should be fired from commissioner. I did a terrible job. And I'll fire myself. I really do.
To be good at fantasy, is it really time consuming?
That's time consuming.
See, I don't have time for that.
And I'm just, there's no money involved. So I'm like, let's see. But it was fun. Congratulations to Shane and Buckeye.
Now, maybe, Cole, we could get a prize going for next year.
Yeah, I think so.
We get this sponsored?
Yep.
Come on.
Yep. Absolutely. We need to do it. Little audio blitz. So much happened in the sports world over the weekend, and it's a lot to consume. We get it. So we're going to throw some audio at you, react rapid fire. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers. Actually nice, like respectful in an interview. Just, I don't know. It's just different.
Deferential a little?
Yeah, maybe. Will Aaron Rodgers retire? Here's what he said post-game.
Give us a sense of your process. What will you do in the coming days and coming months?
It's a good question.
Before you decide what it is you want to do for your next path.
I'm going to get home and relax. I'm going to clear out my head and get healthy from the bumps and bruises from the season. And just, I got a lot of gratitude right now. I'm going to enjoy this tonight. But once I get back out west, I'm going to, take my time. And I'm not going to hold anybody up. I'm going to have conversations tomorrow with everybody here with the Jets and see what they're thinking. And then make a decision before it gets too late in the offseason.
Whatever you do, all the best.
I love you, Pam.
Love you back.
Thank you.
And gave Pam a hug. Like Aaron Rodgers was kind of likable in that clip, Diesel.
I'm going to take a bath in some organic honey.
Yeah.
I'm going to let a puppy dog lick my face.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever your process is, Aaron.
Whatever it takes. So Aaron Rodgers, I think he does hang it up. I think he does. I think I sense that he hangs it up. And look, I don't like the guy, but as far as a football player on the field, he's one of the best to ever do it.
It sounds like he's at peace with his decision.
Yeah, I think he is. I would not be surprised.
It's not going to get any better than this, right? No. It's not. You're not suddenly going to turn the Jets into a 9-win team or a 10-win team next year. So what are you doing this for anymore?
Now, one of my maybe favorite pieces of audio, Diesel, Jadeveon Clowney, the Panthers, they won yesterday. The Falcons didn't win. I don't even know that or not.
Corn Chip's not happy about it.
Corn Chip's not happy. Falcons also not in the postseason.
Oh.
Because
way to go, Carolina.
Because Carolina beat them. Jadeveon Clowney had a message to Atlanta fans yesterday as he was chanting and shouting, "See y'all in Cabo."
Cabo!
You hear the boos. Jadeveon Clowney trolling pretty hard. See y'all in Cabo. I like it. I mean, look, you kept them out. You know, they had a good. I mean,
well, the
after they found Penix, they were a pretty good team.
The Buccaneers won yesterday, right? Didn't the Bucs win yesterday?
Sounds right.
So I think the Bucs kept them out.
Yeah, but with the Jadeveon Clowney, he's going to take credit for it. I mean, it was great. It was great. Jared Goff says the Lions earning the number 1 seed in the NFC is just step number 1.
But like I said, and we said it in there, like it's step 1. And again, like in another world, it happened a couple weeks ago, but it happens right now, and now the playoffs start. But it's step 1, and you know we're proud to be 15-2 NFC North Division champs, back to back. 1 seed, bye week, all that stuff. We're proud of it. But this is just tick number 1, check. And tick number 2 is next.
I like the mentality because ultimately he's right, Diesel. In the NFL, even though you might have a lot of success in the regular season, I know from experience being a Cowboys fan, regular season success does not equate to postseason success. Never has. It doesn't matter the franchise, the quarterback, the team. So I like the attitude that Jared Goff has. Yeah. I think they have the team to do it. Their defense worries me a little bit with the injuries. I think they had 13 injuries yesterday and still won. But I like Jared. How can you not like Jared Goff?
So in this coaching search situation, I don't know if coaches, let's say Ben Johnson gets hired somewhere this year. Is he allowed to finish and coach out the remainder of the season with Detroit?
Yeah, he is.
Okay. If I'm him, I stay. Like I said this before, I stay. I keep collecting big old fat paychecks. I have fun in Detroit. I win a lot of football games. I want to get, 2 or 3 seasons of elite play under my belt before I move on and take that next head coaching job. I mean, his offenses are not going to fall off anytime soon, in all likelihood. Jared Goff is going to stay there and be a good quarterback for coming years. And his reputation, I think, if Jared Goff fell off and didn't perform again next year the way that he did this year, or in 2027 like he did this year, Ben Johnson's reputation is still going to be there. People are still going to want him, right? So, I mean, I think there's value to be had to stay where you are, enjoy doing what you're doing, and go enjoy winning football games instead of giving it all up the moment you get an opportunity.
I'm with you. However, if that phone call rang and it were me in those shoes, it'd be hard. It'd be a hard decision to make, Diesel. If you have the opportunity to go be a head coach and make that kind of money, man, it would be tough to pass up.
But look at what's going on with all these coaches. They're getting fired in their first year.
Yeah, there's
no leash.
Situation matters. Where you go matters 100%. Make sure you go to a good one. Here's Dan Campbell on what he told his players after last night's win.
Division winners in the NFC North. Got the 1 seed, 15 wins. I just couldn't be more proud of those guys. And, I just told them that to me, this has been in the making for a while. It takes a special group of guys. And I think you kind of had to go through what we've been through over the last 4 years, the core of this unit. And then anybody that comes in, they fall in line because that's what we're built around is our core.
Can you not how do you not like Dan Campbell, what he stands for? Do you remember when he got hired in Detroit? People laughed at his introductory press conference. People mocked him. They made fun of the hire. And all Dan Campbell has done is prove people wrong. I think
and then
it's
people
fantastic.
Went and robbed his house, right? That's because his daughter's boyfriend put the address online and people broke into his house. And
is that what it was? His daughter's boyfriend.
Yeah, his daughter's boyfriend doxed him, as they say.
He's a good coach, man. I think Detroit's, they've got a diamond in the rough, if you will, there, Diesel. Pats fans, though, their coach, obviously, you talk about that short lease. It didn't last long. This was if Gerard Mayo heard the boos from the fans yesterday in New England.
Of the chants that were being directed at you towards the end of the game today?
Look, you hear those things, but at the same time, look, they paid to sit in the seats, and we got to play better. And if we play better, we don't have to hear that stuff. So
he's right. Ultimately, they didn't play better this season, and he lost his job. If you just tuned in, Gerard Mayo has been one of the coaches who have been dismissed. So the Patriots looking for a new coach, as well as the Jacksonville Jaguars. So be interesting to see who the New England Patriots
Well, we had Tolos jumping in the stream earlier in the show. It might have been Madcraft. I can't remember who it was now off the top of my head. Who said that they thought Gerard Mayo was just a stopgap to get him to where maybe Vrabel would take the job. He was never going to be given, a long leash. Maybe like if he played exceptionally well and coached a great season this year and they made the playoffs, maybe they wouldn't have a choice. They would have to stick with Gerard Mayo, but he was just sort of that stopgap guy to get them to the coach that they really wanted.
And you know what? Like, again, I said it earlier. It's not his fault. Is he a good coach? I don't know. He may be, he may not be. He may be a great coach. He may be a terrible coach. But it's hard to judge a guy after one season. Let's take it to college football, Diesel. Is this a hot take or no?
Very, very firmly that Kalen DeBoer is on a scorching hot seat. Now, you can say, what does that mean? I'll tell you what I think it means. It means that he is under a microscope. It was playoff or bust this year, and he went bust. And the only chance to scrape all that away was to win a bowl game against a lousy team, which Michigan was all but really one game this season, and he couldn't do it. And the way they lost, it was just horrifying to watch. And so I mean the goodwill. The goodwill went out the window so quickly for him this year. And he's already making a few changes on his staff. The fans are calling our show. They are just up in arms about the lack of offensive production. Mm-hmm. They're also glad Jalen Milroe's gone, but that's not really the question anymore. He wasn't coming back because he doesn't need to come back. But Kalen DeBoer needs to be very careful because if he doesn't make it to the playoffs next year, the target on his back is going to be immense. And Matt, it's almost impossible to calculate where he will be because it depends on the flow of the schedule. But right now, he is very unpopular. And I'm talking about real fans. I'm not talking about the do-gooders that masquerade. And I was in Alabama 2 weeks ago. Actually, it was last week for Christmas. And I had people stop me on the street saying, like, what's with this guy? I mean, they don't even mention his name. I mean, he's like, what's with this guy in Alabama? It's gotten to be that bad.
Scorching hot seat, Diesel.
Paul Feinbaum is such a moron. Paul Feinbaum is the original hot take artist.
Oh, boy.
Paul Feinbaum, knows how to rile up those mouth breathers down in Tuscaloosa.
He does, doesn't he?
Who will, don't
scorching hot.
Do they forget that it didn't necessarily start off so hot for Nick Saban either?
No, they don't
it
care.
Took them a little time. They don't care. You're right.
Care.
They've gotten to this place where it's untenable. It's unsustainable.
So look, I don't think his seat's scorching hot, but I do think there's a little bit of truth to the fact of you got to win this year. 2025 is an important year, but I don't know. Scorching hot after one season. I don't know. I'll tell you this, to Paul Feinbaum's point, Diesel, losing to Michigan and having the season they had, by Bama standards, it was unacceptable.
Yeah. What was the word that Paul used there to describe Michigan? An awful team.
They were bad.
Come on.
And they had so many dudes out, like 10 plus dudes out, and they still beat Bama.
He's bad.
Continuing the audio blitz, here is my coach, Mike McCarthy, on if he will be the Cowboys coach next year. He was directly asked that this morning. I have said it earlier today, I don't think that Mike should get the axe for what wasn't his fault, but here's what he had to say.
Your body of work after 5 years suggests you should be back for another year?
Oh, I've a lot of confidence in myself as a head coach, but I think like anything, body of work, the statistics. I think it's more about the program, the details of what needs to be done. How can we get better? All those things go into these decisions of whether you originally get the job or continue to move forward. So I'm definitely in a position with Jerry to move the program forward. I mean, there's no question about that in my mind. So that's why these conversations need to happen.
So Mike's confident. Mike does not feel that his job's on the line. Obviously, who knows with it being Jerry Jones, right? But I think I think if you look at the situation he's in and who he has to deal with and the lack of talent he got to his team in the offseason, Diesel, I don't know that you can really put it on Mike.
I think maybe getting out of Dallas is the best thing for Mike McCarthy. Get out of there, find yourself an ownership group that knows what they're doing, that knows what they want, that doesn't try to second guess you and look over your shoulder every step of the way. I mean, Mike McCarthy's got how old is Mike? He's in his late 50s.
Late 50s, yeah.
So he's potentially got another 10 years left in this league. Do you really want to spend 5 of them with an extension with the Cowboys or another 2 of them in an extension? Because we joked about this off the air that Jerry Jones is going to outlive all of us. Like that dude he ain't going to die. He is the crypt keeper, right? So, I mean, do you really want to work under that guy? The league understands, the league remembers context with certain situations that you're put in. So I think it's probably better for him to move on.
Here's Baker Mayfield on Mike Evans' accomplishment yesterday with tying Jerry Rice.
You were able to get Mike the record there. The game-winning play, what was the talk going into the huddle there?
I mean, talking about the one that the Bucky scored on?
Yeah.
It was trying to dial up something for Mike to get yards. Thought we were getting 0 blitz, so we checked the play, and they wound up playing just a weird leverage on it. And so gave the ball to Bucky, and at that point, the most important thing is winning the game. And you got to focus on that. So, I mean, God is good. He gave us a chance back at it. Defense got the ball back for us, and I mean, Mike deserves that so much.
I could see, I saw everybody's face as you guys were walking to the sidelines when Bucky scored, feeling bad for Mike, but also wanting to win the game. All right, so take us to the moment. You guys get the ball back. You're in the huddle. What was the conversation? What were you thinking?
No turnovers. You get the ball to 13.
That's pretty impressive. I mean, Mike Evans, for as quickly as he tied Jerry Rice's record, 1,000-yard, his 11th straight 1,000-yard receiving season. That's just, I mean, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So,
and he's still doing it at his age.
Yeah, he's still.
I mean, he's like 50 also, right? I think he's the same age as Mike.
59, something like that. Yeah. One more, C.J. Stroud on Bryce Young and his play as of late.
Pretty tight. He just helped lead the Panthers to a win over the Falcons and had like 5 touchdowns in the game. So just some of your thoughts on that. Seeing your brother play very well and to close out this season.
Yeah, you've been balling, man. I'm so happy for him. You know, that inspires me to keep going. You know, and I definitely I'm always a big fan of his. Always will be. So that's a brother of mine. It's good to hear that. You know, I'm probably watch highlights when we're getting a blessing.
You know, those two, Diesel, a lot of conversation when the draft happened on who should go 1. But it seems as if they still keep up with each other and still respect each other. And you can have the debate, you know. But maybe, just maybe, Bryce Young can prove us wrong. And he can say, look, you know, the Panthers did make the right pick.
There you go. When we come back, Cole, let's talk to David Newton of ESPN.com, Panthers Nation reporter, on all things headed our way for the Carolina Panthers in the offseason and into 2025 and the NFL draft coming up. That's next on the Fan Upstate. Well, it's not really sexy to talk about a 5-win NFL team, but when you compare that to where the Carolina Panthers had been, it feels like they've made it to the moon and back. We talked to David Newton of ESPN.com right now. He joins us to talk all things Carolina Panthers. David, number one, thank you for taking the time today. But can you go into a little bit what about Bryce Young changed during his benching that led to the remarkable turnaround after he came back? Even though some of those weren't wins, we saw a much improved Bryce Young. What happened to him when he had time off?
Well, first of all, I don't think they've quite made it to the moon, but they did make it always to Atlanta, Georgia, and back. So, as far as Bryce, I think the key there is he never lost his confidence. Was he probably ticked off a little bit that he was benched and felt like he could still play? Yes. But he kind of focused on moving forward and focused on becoming the best he could be at being the scout team quarterback and backing Andy Dalton. I mean, you saw him on the field during games, bringing players water, slap them on the back, give them encouragement. He was the same player then, but he was at the end. But I think the fact that he got back in there, he got more confident. And I think more importantly, Dave Canales got more confident in Bryce and what he could call for him. He changed some of the flow of how he called games, and he changed some of the plays he called, put some of the things that he liked in the back, burner, and called things that he knew Bryce liked. And you could see, when he did that it just sort of lit Bryce up. Just he was happy to do it. I mean, I think no play this season that shows more of how far they've come or he's come than the 4th and 1 play where he threw the 12-yard touchdown to Tommy Tremble, and he does a Steph Curry move and turns his back and raises his arms for a touchdown before the ball even reaches the player's hands. I mean, that's so unlike anything that those of us have covered the team have seen out of Bryce Young and the confidence level. But the players around him have seen that all year. They saw that last year behind the scenes. They just haven't, seen it come out to that level. And it shows just how confident Bryce is in himself and what the direction the team is headed right now to allow himself to do a move like that.
David, today is Black Monday. Several NFL coaches have already been fired, and I'm sure we'll hear of more to come. What do you think Panther fans feel today? Because, in the past few years, Black Monday's been a dreaded day. You've covered the Panthers for a long time. Obviously, it's got to feel good that on Black Monday, you're, as a Panthers fan base, not worried about having to lose your coach and go through another coaching change this season.
Yeah, and I think that's very important. And maybe it shows how far David Tepper's come here, that he didn't give up on this team or this staff and Dave Canales or anybody when they were 0-2 or when they were 1-7 or wherever they were at that point. But he's remained patient and allowed them all to grow together. I think that's very important. You can't change head coaches every year. You can't change general managers every year. If you do, you'll end up being the New York Jets or Cleveland Browns and teams that have not had any success over the last 20, 30 years, at least, getting the Super Bowls and things like that. So I just think that it was time for the Panthers to be in this position to not be doing anything but focused on the future with the people they have, because every time you take a coach and you change that situation, it's like the cliche, you take, one step forward, 2-3 steps backwards. And that's what kept happening. So, I think it's really significant. I think it's significant that even though they gave up an NFL single season record, 534 points this year, that they really believe in defense coordinator Ejiro Evero and what he can do for this team moving forward. I'm not saying they won't make some changes on his staff, but, they believe that the man, calling defensive signals and putting this scheme together can take them forward too. I just think there's a lot of positive things that come out of today's, what players were saying, what coaches were saying, Dan Morgan was saying, and just the last few months, the direction this program's gone.
David, take us back a year ago and tell us what it was like being around that franchise, being around the coaches after the season was over, when you end the year on a 3-game losing streak the way they did, not scoring a single offensive point the last 2 weeks of the season, and compare that to ending the season on such a positive vibe this year? Maybe it's a question you won't be able to answer since the answer is now just 24 hours old. But what do you think the building will be like over the next couple of weeks compared to last year?
Well, I mean, last year there was just so much unknown because you already had fired Frank Reich. You knew you weren't going to keep the replacement interim coach. So you knew there was going to be a coaching search. You knew there was going to be a change at GM. So you just knew there was going to be a lot more change. And again, every time you take change, you usually don't move forward that fast. So you didn't know what was coming. You didn't know really much about Dave Canales when they hired him and what kind of a head coach he could be. I had a feeling that Dan Morgan was going to be the right guy for the GM just because I knew Dan as a player growing up and watching him and covering him. There was confidence in there that he had what it took to do that. But you didn't know enough about Dave Canales to know exactly who he would become. And I think what we've seen this year was a lot of growth, not for Bryce, but for Dave Canales and this whole staff and this whole organization. And again, you're right. There was no positivity coming out of last season. There was complete gloom and doom. And this year, today was all about the future and what this organization could be. I'm not saying they're ready to turn the corner and, be a Super Bowl contender next year, but I think they did take a huge step forward by finishing strong. I go back to the Ron Rivera first couple of years. They won 6 games the first year, then 7 games the second year, and you saw growth because each one of those years they won, I think, a majority of their games the last half of the season and finished strong, and that propelled them each year to the next season. And by that third season, they won NFC South and made the playoffs. So I think this division, just looking at it and what we saw this year, is going to be up for grabs next year. I don't think there's really a dominating team. I mean, Tampa's probably the best team there, and Bryce Young, one could argue, is if not close to the best quarterback in this division with Baker Mayfield, maybe close, maybe even a nudge better as time goes on. We'll find. So again, there was just nothing but positivity came out of the day, and the overall feeling was so much brighter than it was a year ago. Because a year ago it was definitely a dark day, and today was a dark day because it rained and poured down rain when we first started in the locker room. But it felt like sunshine in the locker room.
David Newton, ESPN, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. David, I heard some audio from Dave Canales saying that, hey, Bryce Young is our quarterback. Do you believe in your mind, in your heart, that when the Andy Dalton wreck happened, do you believe this franchise was then at that very moment sold that Bryce Young was the guy?
No, I think it took some time. I think it was probably a month and a half after that before Dave Canales and this organization. I think there were people. I think David Tepper and even Dan Morgan believed totally in Bryce Young had a future here. I'm not 100% sure on Dave whether he did at that point, but I do believe as he saw Bryce grow, as he saw the way he handled adversity. He's a young coach. I mean, this is like we talk about David Tepper and what's happened to him as an owner. I mean, he's had to kind of learn on the fly to be an owner, and in a lot of ways, Canales was learning on the fly to be a head coach, and that was a tough decision he made to bench Bryce Young after an 0-2 start. But as he reiterated today, he did it for what was the best for the organization, best for the team. And I think it really was best for the team because it gave Bryce a chance to step back and get a better picture of what it really took to be an NFL starting quarterback. But at that moment, I know Dan Morgan said there was a plan to get Bryce back in there at some point, but I've gotten no feeling from anybody else there that it was really a true, hard plan to get Bryce back in there as long as Andy was still playing well, or at least well enough to give him a chance. So I do think that was a pivotal point in the organization because had that not happened, I don't think there would have been time for Dave and Bryce to grow the way they did as head coach, play caller, and quarterback. And again, I think what you've seen here over the last month has been, I hate to say nothing short of a miracle, but it's in a lot of ways it feels like it has been.
David Newton, ESPN, NFL Nation, Panthers reporter. How has Dave Tepper's approach changed? We don't see very much of him anymore because he's not throwing drinks on people and he's not showing up on security footage in restaurants. And it feels like he's taken a big time step back. How have your interactions and your press conferences with him, how has he looked the past couple of weeks?
Well, there have been no press conferences. I'll say that. I've chatted with him a few times at practice and on the sideline, but I wouldn't say he's taken a big step back. I think he's taken a different approach to his step back. He still wants to know everything that's going on. He still is, hands-on, but he's not, I guess, overpowering hands-on. I think he is trusting the people he's hired to make the right decisions and to do the right thing. And I think that's been the key. And I think that you didn't really hear a lot of complaints or grumblings or whatever you want to call it during the rough start of this season. And it never did get great. I mean, they're still 5-12, but I just think he's grown as an owner and learned things that he couldn't have even known 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So again, as Dave Canales has grown with Bryce Young has grown with Dave Canales. David Tepper's grown with this organization, and I look at that as all positive for everybody involved.
David, are there some guys on the fringe in your mind that may or may not be a Carolina Panther in 2025?
It depends on what you mean by fringe. I mean, there's some guys that they probably would like to keep. I mean, Brady Christensen's one that got some starts at center and guard, tackle, and can play well, but I think he's proven that he can be a good enough player to start in this league. And I think he's told me today he's going to test the market. He'd like to stay here, but if the right opportunity is there, that he'll probably be gone. That'll hurt their depth because I thought he was really solid there. Austin Corbett, who began the season as their starting center, I think he's probably going to have to move on. He wants to go somewhere where he can be kind of guaranteed a chance to start. I don't think he can say that here right now, the way this lineup is. Adam Thielen today kind of hinted that he might retire. I still think he'll be back, but he's 34 years old, and he's got to take a look at what's best for him and his family. But I still think he's got a solid year left to offer. So I guess the one that I would be most curious about would be, besides the specialists, because all three of them are up in the air, but I think you'll see at least a couple of those back. I'm curious about Shaq Thompson. I think they want him back. He wants to come back. He said he wanted to finish as a Panther. But getting to his age, exactly what he would take from a new contract to come back with his injury history. I mean, it's going to take probably a team-friendly deal for him to do that. But I think his leadership in this group would be really good addition to keep. And I don't know many places he could really go right now and get a big deal. So if he wants to stay here, I think that's one you got to pay attention to.
David, depending on which mock draft you looked at, the Panthers are linked to Abdul Carter, edge rush out of Penn State, Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia, possibly McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Having the needs that the Carolina Panthers have going into next year, but also the fact that they feel okay to decent to good in some positions about who they have in place now, it feels like for the first time in a long time, the Panthers can really just go best player available. Do you feel the same way?
No, I feel like they'll take the best defensive player available. And the ones you mentioned are why. It's going to be a strong defensive draft. If the Penn State edge rusher falls all the way to number 8, I don't even think they'd have to take a second to put I think they take him. But I guess that was the biggest drawback of them winning on Sunday because, they went from a potential top 5 pick to number 8, and I don't think him and even the Michigan linemen are going to fall all the way out of the top 5 or top 6, and those are really good players. I think could really help this defense a lot. I mean, you go back to after that dreadful 2001 season where they won one game, in 2002 where they drafted Julius Pepper with the 2nd pick. That kind of propelled them to the 2003 and the Super Bowl. They need to get a guy on defense that can be a star player, can put pressure on the quarterback, whether it's a lineman or an edge rusher.
It's interesting, David, when you look at the draft that's coming up in April. Obviously, we'll continue to talk about that. Biggest need versus best player available has always been a very interesting conversation. What do you think, though, when you talk about today the momentum of this franchise being positive and being able to obtain their goals for 2025/2026, what do you think, other than the draft, could happen during free agency? Obviously, salary cap comes into concern there that the Panthers could do to upgrade this roster without having to rely on the draft.
I would keep an eye out for maybe a number 1 receiver out of free agency. I don't know if they can pay the money that T. Higgins out of Cincinnati would want. But I don't think the Bengals can pay two receivers number one money. So I think he'll be available in free agency, but I just don't know if you want to spend that much on a receiver at this point. They're not, teams don't let go their edge rushers very often, so they're not going to be any of those guys, at least the young guys that they could build around and be older veterans like they got this year with Clowney. So I think if you can find a young star, like, I'm not saying Higgins is coming here at all, but I'm saying a young star like Higgins and that kind of a player that you could get it here and grow around him, I think that would be probably an area they'll look at right now.
David, as always, we appreciate your time. Fantastic stuff, and we look forward to having you on again soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
How about a little FCS football tonight, Diesel? You and I haven't talked about it yet, but the national freaking championships tonight. Did you know that? Let's go.
I did know this, and on Friday of last week, we had a Tolo text in. I don't remember who it was. I think they actually messaged it in on the stream and said, Diesel, since you're such a fan of smaller college football, what do you think about this game? Well, texter, I don't know what's going on in the FCS playoffs and national championships. Tonight is Montana State versus North Dakota State. North Dakota State there as always, right? They are the Alabama of FCS. Now that the FCS has been watered down to the point where, most of the good teams and some teams that shouldn't have made a move up to power football, to FBS football, it's the entire power of FCS football has pushed towards the Pacific Northwest, and it's kind of odd, right? Like in most sports, you got all the power in the Southeast. That's the nicest weather. The best recruits want to go there. They play in the biggest stadiums, et cetera, et cetera. But not in the FCS. It is pushed into the Northeast, and it's because the likes of Marshall and App State and Georgia Southern and good FCS teams have all left FCS. So now that division is less competitive than what James Madison, of course. And there's others, Cole, that have wanted to leave, but otherwise couldn't find a home. I mean, Delaware had been a power in FCS for years. They can't find a home. Nobody wants them in the FBS level.
Countdown to kickoff on ESPN now. 14 minutes until kick. Montana State's trying to get revenge on North Dakota State. Montana State, I was reading earlier, Diesel, returns like 13 guys from last year's team. Montana State's a 4.5-point favorite tonight over North Dakota State, which is wild to think about. North Dakota State's always there. They're the ones that are always in this game. But Montana State, as of late, has come on the scene.
Montana State's been rolling teams.
No, it's not even close. They brought back everybody from last year's team.
These are like high school scores, honestly. 52-19, 49-17, 34-11. Now, they had one tight game earlier against UC Davis for some reason, 30-28. But then you go 49-7, 42-28. I mean, these are high school scores when you just have by far and away more talent than everybody else on your schedule. But then you look back at what they've done in the playoff, Cole, and they've actually had a really compelling run to the playoffs. And I want to get into that tomorrow. Now that we have a national champion, or will have a national champion by that point, are the FCS playoffs, just on purely watching football, are the FCS playoffs better than the 12-team college football playoff that we've had? And it's going to be hard to find the answer is no, considering just how many blowouts we've had in this 12-team playoff.
Had some blowouts. It'll be interesting. I'll have to go back. That's a great question. I'd like to go back and look at the entirety of the playoffs at the FCS level. It doesn't seem like, again, we don't cover and follow FCS like we do FBS, but it doesn't seem like there's near as much parity at the top. It kind of seems like FCS kind of seems like FBS did in 2009, 10, 11, 12 with Bama. However, it's really good football. You and I were talking about it off the air. Montana State on the scene that you mentioned their games this year have not been close. It'll be close tonight. There's no doubt in my mind. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat crow. That game tonight will be close. I've got Montana State -2.5 on a teaser tonight. So it'll be really interesting to see the level of play. I enjoy watching it. The FCS playoffs, to me, anytime they're on, I forgot about watching. I hadn't watched a lot of it this year. But I'll watch tonight. And I'll say this: it might be a better playoff. We might need to just simplify things.
Well, in years past, now this playoff has grown to the point where I think like 24 teams get in now. It was better when it was 16. It's grown. But Cole, here's a prime example. This game's being played on a Monday night when the only reason they're playing on a Monday night is because there's no Monday Night Football this week. This used to be Saturday prime time. And in years past, I've seen the national championship game played on a Saturday or a Sunday mid-afternoon, to the point where it's kind of relegated to whenever ESPN needs something to fill time.
Yeah. I'm excited, though. 10 minutes until kickoff. Again, Montana State's favored. The real line is like 4.5 over North Dakota State. it should be fun. Hey, there's football on. There's no Monday Night Football tonight, so this is really our only chance to watch football tonight. So guess what? I'll gladly take it.
And next year, this title game moves to Nashville. They're going to be playing at Vanderbilt's newly renovated stadium.
And where's that this year,
next
did you say?
year? I believe this is the last year in Frisco. Yeah.
When I lived there, man, people would just come in. I mean, their fans, they'd come in by the
Well, you could spot the Bison fan from a mile away because they'd have that big Bison helmet on.
Oh, yeah, the yellow, too. Yeah.
Tolos, thanks for listening.